Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Caspian Policy Center's 8th Annual Trans-Caspian Forum. Now I'd like to invite our director, Efkan Nifty, for welcoming remarks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Efkan Nifty with the Caspian Policy Center. It's again Trans-Caspian Forum time, once again. It's our 8th forum that we are having. Your Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Caspian Policy Center is pleased to host the 8th Trans-Caspian Forum, gathering prominent experts from government, business, academia, and the policy world as we convene for the 8th year in a row to discuss arising challenges and opportunities for the Caspian region. This year, our focus is specifically on the emerging Trans-Caspian International Transport Route, also known as the Middle Corridor. I want to take a moment to thank embassies and our friends at the US government and the European Commission for their support for this event. The developments witnessed in the Caspian region in the last 12 months have been remarkable. This includes progress in the development of the Middle Corridor, ongoing reconciliation strides between Armenia and Azerbaijan, heightened levels of engagement and investment from a diverse array of global donors, the enduring ramifications of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, challenges posed by climate crisis, matters concerning Black Sea security, the ongoing energy transition, and the increasing significance of critical minerals. Specifically, in the areas of connectivity and trade, the Trans-Caspian Corridor has become an increasingly important alternative to the standard routes via Russia and Belarus. With its total length of 2,000 kilometers shorter than Russia's northern corridor, the Middle Corridor has the potential to become a viable alternative by shortening the transport duration to 15 days, helping products move as far as from China to Europe, through Central Asia and the South Caucasus onto Turkey. With that being said, in order to fully utilize the Middle Corridor's potential, further infrastructure improvements are imperative. Increased attention to the Middle Corridor has also brought to spotlight some of the challenges the route currently faces. Given its currently limited capacity, further infrastructure and other developments are necessary to prevent bottlenecks along the route. Improvements in customs procedures, cargo and capacity, security, and streamlining are needed to optimize the effectiveness of the Middle Corridor. Plans call for increasing the volumes of cargo transiting Middle Corridor to 11 million tons annually by 2030. Investments from outside key actors such as EU and the United States can provide the necessary capital as well as the technical know-how to realize these goals. At the time when Russian routes are hampered by sanctions and maritime trade constricted by the hostilities in the Middle East, the need for the diversification of trade routes is obvious. This has injected new momentum into the development of the regional transport connectivity in Central Asia and the South Caucasus. Further support of projects like this will not only boost political and economic relations with the region, but also support regional goals for connectivity, energy diversification, and long-term development. In the light of our 8th Trans-Caspian Forum, I want to express our gratitude to the honored guests, excellencies, embassies, and partners for joining us here today. I look forward to listening to our distinguished guests and keynote speakers. Thank you for your enthusiasm and ability to participate in today's discussions. I also like to make a small note. I'd like to say happy birthday to our board member, Professor Roger Kangas. As I said, this year is remarkable. We have seen so much interest in this Middle Corridor, and I think there's a huge momentum to develop the Middle Corridor. As I remember, when we first started doing the forum, there was a lot of skepticism towards the potential connectivity in the region. As we see that both external and internal developments in the region have brought a new picture, now we see that there is a lot of forces combined together trying to facilitate this corridor as smoothly as possible, because it is one platform that gives a common vision for the whole region, including South Caucasus, Central Asia, and Turkey. In this perspective, we see a big opportunity for US and also European Union to engage in that regard. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up today, and I hope we can continue this tradition next year as well. Now, let's proceed with our 8th Trans-Caspian Forum. I'll now pass the floor to Chairman of the Board, Ambassador Richard Hoagland. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is really a great privilege for me to say good morning to you and welcome you to the 8th Trans-Caspian Forum. I have participated in these almost from the beginning, and each time there's an electricity in the room because, as always, of course, history is happening, and that's what we're looking at today. We have 2 keynote speakers this morning. I'm going to introduce very quickly our first speaker. It is the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Global Markets and also Director General of the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service Global Markets. This is Mr. Venkataraman. And if I mispronounced your name, sir, I apologize. But I welcome you to the podium, and we look forward to hearing your words.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, friends of the Trans-Caspian region. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be here today with all of you. Let me first thank our friends at the Caspian Policy Center for the opportunity to be here with you this morning, specifically Efkan Nifty, Ambassador Hoagland, Dr. McGraw, and Dr. Rudenschild. Let me also thank the leadership of each and every country in attendance today for supporting the CPC. We very much value the CPC's work, and we hope you continue to engage with the Center as this institution is integral in our efforts to strengthen our partnerships. As you all know, the Caspian Policy Center is a leading institution dedicated to scholarship, debate, and projects aimed at introducing folks interested in the region to a diverse set of regional voices in academia, business, and policy. The work being done here is necessary and most welcome due to the growing global interest in the Caspian region. And this is no more true than in the commercial sector, where I work every day at the U.S. Department of Commerce. The U.S. government and the Department of Commerce recognizes the economic and strategic importance of the Trans-Caspian region. Over the last 2 years, trade with the Trans-Caspian region hovered around $40 billion. U.S. exports and imports to the region are split nearly 50-50, $20 billion in U.S. exports and $20 billion in U.S. imports. These statistics are welcome and show that through collective effort, trade can be reciprocal and both sides can benefit when partnerships are built on mutual respect and trust. At the Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration, it is our job to help U.S. businesses find partners and do business with our friends overseas. It is also our job to help our partners overseas meet their goals and find U.S. solutions to help them advance those goals. And nowhere do we see such synergy as promising as in the Middle Corridor. We know that the value of trade moving through the region en route to Europe, the Middle East, and the Far East continues to increase. For that reason, it's natural that, as we have heard from all of our friends in the region, countries throughout the region are interested in diversifying their economic relationships. In the past 14 months, I have had the privilege of going to all 3 South Caucasus countries, and in the past week, I've been in both the Turkish and Kazakh ends of the Trans-Caspian corridor. I'm sure my Turkish and Kazakh colleagues here today at the forum will share their own thoughts, but it seems to me that in both Turkey and Kazakhstan, government officials and businesses see the expansion of transit cargo capacity as a tremendous opportunity, and we share in that vision. This doesn't mean just seaports, airports, cargo terminals, and rail lines and highways. but also communications infrastructure, safety and security systems. Communications infrastructure, or what we sometimes call digital infrastructure, include interconnected and independent IT systems needed to move goods and people more efficiently in the modern age. Digital infrastructure can also include technology that transmits financial services, monitors utility service delivery, and manages water resources necessary to expand agriculture production. This requires not only bringing the right technologies to the market, but also ensuring that the right policy framework is in place that support the data flows and other tools necessary to make digital infrastructure work. How can we expand trade routes, extend energy supplies, and mitigate adverse impacts on the environment? These are complex policy challenges that also represent opportunities for our business communities, as well as increased government-to-government collaboration. I know cargo capacity projections and infrastructure projects that optimize trade routes are equally on the minds of business people and my government counterparts in the South Caucasus. When I visited Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia 14 months ago, I spoke with American companies working in the region that are eager to assist regional harmonized efforts to expand trade. In my conversations with American businesses, they emphasized to me the importance of a stable, predictable, business-friendly environment and the need to have greater specificity and granularity in understanding the projects that are available. First, stability and predictability are deeply important to U.S. businesses. American companies have so much to offer in capital, in technology, in project execution know-how, and in logistics operation and management. However, sharing these capabilities requires operating environments that are business-friendly and open to dialogue with U.S. private sector communities. Maintaining a globally competitive investment environment is an essential foundation to increasing trade and investment, especially in an era, as we see now, where companies and countries are competing for capital with many alternative investment destinations. Strong business ecosystems are a requirement for strong economies. Successful entrepreneurial ecosystems that create increasing numbers of small to medium-sized companies are evidence of a business environment headed in the right transaction. And that is why we are so proud of the deep and collaborative work that we are doing with all of our partners in the region to strengthen their own vision and the steps they themselves are taking to create those right environments. U.S. companies are looking for precisely these signs when deciding where they would like to invest their time and capital. As you know, in the United States, unlike other countries, we don't tell our companies where to go. Our companies go where there are opportunities and where the environment is attractive, and that requires all of us to work together to help create that pull factor in each of these economies so that our companies can be the partners that they want to be. But this also is why our companies are asking for greater specificity when they look at projects that are coming up in the region. What project does a company or country want to develop? What goods or services specifically do they want to procure? Who would be their partners, customers, and clients? How will this project be financed, and by whom? And what is the role of both governments in supporting these projects? These are the questions that U.S. companies often want the answers to before engaging in an opportunity. Countries and companies must dedicate resources to create the clear roadmaps that companies need. None of us can tell the future, but U.S. companies interested in large-scale projects with long time horizons need to visualize a clear path towards a return on investment. Of course, this takes planning, foresight, and consultation. But U.S. companies are eager to develop and maintain the close working relationships necessary to ensure engagement in infrastructure projects is mutually beneficial. At the Department of Commerce, we are not a finance agency. I certainly wouldn't presume to speak for my friends at the Export-Import Bank, the Development Finance Corporation, or the Trade and Development Agency. about what they can bring to the table. But what I have been hearing is that the more these agencies are involved and the larger the role they play, the better the chances U.S. companies can compete to participate in high-priority, high-value projects. Now, these financial agencies do not typically announce that they have a pot of funds to deploy toward a specific country or region. Rather, they get involved in response to specific projects, in response to project proposals that they receive from foreign as well as U.S. participants on a case-by-case basis. One of our strengths at the Commerce Department is getting the word out to U.S. companies about procurements and other opportunities. We are proud of our network of over 100 offices around the United States and in embassies and consulates in over 80 markets around the world that we use to reach U.S. businesses with this kind of vital information. Detailed information received early in the procurement process helps ensure strong responses from U.S. bidders, and we look forward to working with our friends in the governments in the regions to make that possible. American companies in the room, please keep in mind that should you decide to bid, we have a tailored advocacy process in which we collaborate with the Department of State and other relevant U.S. agencies to support your efforts to provide products and services to foreign government agencies and state-owned companies. Now, I know we are all eager to hear from the regional voices that the Caspian Policy Center is so expert at convening. And so in closing, let me just thank you all again for attending here today. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share a few words with you. I look forward to deepening our collaboration going forward, and we are as committed as ever at the Department of Commerce to expanding trade opportunities throughout the Caspian region, and look forward to continuing our work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Two words stood out for me there: challenges and opportunities. And I think I heard opportunities 3 times more often than I heard challenges. So I think that's a very positive way to look at this entire region. Ladies and gentlemen, our other first keynote speaker is a good colleague of mine from the past. Ambassador John Mark Pommersheim is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Central Asia, a job that I know very well and a job that he is doing superbly well. Ambassador, we would welcome you to the stage to give your thoughts. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues, esteemed ambassadors. First of all, thank you. Thank you to the Caspian Policy Center, to EFCON, to the board, to Ambassador Hoagland for inviting me today and for convening this esteemed group of experts and business leaders interested in the Central Asian and the Caucasus region. It is truly an impressive effort that you all do, not just during this particular day, but throughout the entire year. And echoing the words of the Assistant Secretary, we very much appreciate your efforts on this important issue of bringing more attention to the Caspian region and its incredible potential. U.S. government policy towards the Trans-Caspian is a key element of our policies toward the entire Central Asian region. It's one part of that strategy and one part of that element. But the U.S. partnership with Central Asia runs deep. It spans more than 30 years and $30 billion in U.S. contributions to support development in Central Asia across the wide and diverse geography and cultures that make up this amazing region, a region that my family and I have had the opportunity to call home for nearly a decade. Many here today have been part of the increased high-level U.S. engagement with Central Asian leaders over the past 2 years, a level of engagement that is greater than at any time in the past 30-plus years of the independence of the Central Asian states. I'm pleased to say that our cooperation has reached a new height over the past year. It may seem like a long time ago to those of you following the region closely, but we continue to anchor on the inaugural C5+1 Presidential Summit, which took place only last September. The New York Declaration, issued by the C5+1 presidents, is serving as a catalyst for our partnership with the region, both in the C5+1 format and also bilaterally. During the summit, President Biden affirmed continued U.S. support through the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, or PGI as it's known, to scale infrastructure investment and accelerate the economic development, energy security, and connectivity of the Trans-Caspian corridor. Through PGI, the United States is currently evaluating potential areas for infrastructure investment where the U.S. government could contribute project advisory technical assistance, project preparation, and/or financing to tangibly move forward strategic projects in the corridor. In January, Nicholas Berliner, Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Russia and Central Asia at the National Security Council, who spoke here last year, led the U.S. delegation to the EU Global Gateway Investors Forum on Sustainable Transport Connectivity between Europe and Central Asia. And during that forum, participants committed to coordinating and implementing investments for projects that the EBRD identified along the Trans-Caspian corridor. The United States is proud to be a founding member, an important contributor to the work of the EBRD. We are also proud to be a large stakeholder in the International Finance Corporation and a founding member of the Asian Development Bank, through which we contribute to infrastructure investments, including along Trans-Caspian routes. Infrastructure investments scaled through PGI will complement and enhance other U.S. initiatives that facilitate regional economic integration, including those developed as part of the Economic Resilience Initiative in Central Asia, also known as ARICEN. The administration launched ARICEN in September of 2022 to catalyze transformative economic growth across Central Asia in the wake of Russia's unprovoked war of aggression against Ukraine. ARICEN is a $45 million program that seeks to diversify Central Asia's trade routes, expand investment in the region, and increase employment opportunities by investing in people through education and training. Within Central Asia, USAID's Trade Central Asia program has invested, just since 2021, more than $24 million to improve intra-regional trade by harmonizing customs and border procedures, increasing public-private dialogue on trade and investment, improving cross-border firm-to-firm connectivity, and supporting improvements to the Trans-Caspian corridor. This work also inspired the first-ever USAID-led C5+1 Regional Connectivity Ministerial in October, for which Administrator Samantha Power joined C5 leadership in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, to discuss digitalization of customs processes and other joint actions to increase trade connectivity. And it was on full display just last week at the USAID-organized Central Asia Trade Forum in Almaty, where more than 300 business executives and government officials from the region and beyond attended and signed over $13 million worth of contracts. I'm glad you'll be able to hear today from USAID's Europe and Eurasia Bureau on their work in the South Caucasus as well. ARICEN funds an English language education and networking program called C5+1 ONE, C5 plus ONE, which stands for Opening Networks Through English, that is building the capacity of the C5 to engage with the United States and other international partners on critical environmental and energy issues. So in just the last year, the program has engaged over 1,000 civil society and government professionals across the region. And those professionals are now already using their English skills in international fora and in other ways in professional settings. Importantly, ARASEN also supports the Trans-Caspian Trade Route Coordination Program, publicly launched in Tashkent in January, but it's been working much longer than that. That program is managed by the U.S. Department of Commerce's Commercial Law Development Program, known as CLDP, and the platform links experts and government officials with international donors that are supporting soft infrastructure development to enhance the trade corridor's effective functioning in support of Central Asian transit and connectivity. The platform incorporates stakeholder inputs from the C5, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and others with recommendations for regulatory reforms and soft infrastructure measures to enhance the corridor's effective functioning, complementing the coordination platform for hard infrastructure investments that others are making. There is a lot of very detailed, painstaking work taking place across many countries through that program, and so I'm very glad that you'll be able to hear from Tamar Satterwhite later today to talk about the incredible work that platform is doing. Another U.S. program I want to note is the B5+1. The B, of course, stands for business. This program formally launched in Almaty in March, and it serves as a private sector-led platform representing business interests in Central Asia and promoting open private-public dialogue between U.S. and Central Asia private sector actors and C5+1 government representatives. By formalizing this business-to-government and business-to-business dialogue, we hope to catalyze processes that lead to innovative business solutions and enhanced international trade flows. As we look to build on the engagements that have occurred to date and expand our work to identify and advance hard and soft infrastructure investments, we have an opportunity for the U.S. government to leverage enhanced coordination among our international partners, including through the G7 and other like-minded partners working in Central Asia. We share this common goal of advancing regional connectivity and economic resilience in Central Asia and the South Caucasus. Finally, while I've highlighted a number of government programs, and I feel like I've served you a bit of Uncle Sam acronym soup this morning, I do want to highlight and underscore that we place great importance on the necessity and leadership of the private sector in the development of the corridor. And we want to play an enabling role for the private sector and join in celebrating its successes. As Assistant Secretary Venkataraman mentioned, the importance of the business environment. And it's a given that the success of the Trans-Caspian corridor depends on the further improvement of the business climate in all the countries involved. Potential investors, both governments and private sector, are closely watching both the successes and the challenges faced by U.S. businesses that have been active in the region. Some of those businesses have been active for many decades. Those companies already on the ground can and should be the best spokespeople for the regional investment climate. And we encourage our government partners in the region to carefully consider the experience of current businesses operating in the region as they work to attract additional investment. One U.S. company that I wanted to just quickly highlight this morning before I close is Wabtec, which since 2009 has manufactured or overhauled nearly 1,000 locomotives for Kazakhstan's railroads, contributing to the local economy, employing nearly 1,000 people, and supporting manufacturing jobs in both Astana and in my home state of Pennsylvania. We see private sector leaders like Wabtec playing a key role in the development of the Trans-Caspian corridor. This is just one example, and our teams at our embassies throughout the region, our colleagues at the Department of Commerce, and other agencies of the U.S. government stand ready to help and promote U.S. business involvement in the development of this commercial corridor and the region as a whole. So again, thank you very much for the invitation to be here this morning. I look forward to hearing from the rest of the contributors, and I am sure this will be an extremely enlightening and useful conversation in the course of the day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I really appreciated all that detail. It gives us an idea of how broad things are in the relationship now. A very quick anecdote. I first, as a U.S. diplomat, lived in Central Asia, was sent to Central Asia in 1993, soon after independence, to Tashkent. And I was there to help open our new embassy. And at that time, there was an official from the government who was assigned to me as my minder, who wanted to be with me whenever I was in public. He would often take me out to dinner or to a nightclub. And one evening, after several rounds of vodka toasts, he asked me, "Now tell me, what are you really doing here?" And my reply was, "I am here with the U.S. government to help build relations with your new independent nation." And he shook his head and he said, "I don't think we're really independent. We didn't ask for this." And now, 30 years later, look where things stand. Look at the vast changes that have taken place. Look at the importance of each individual independent country now. What we want to do is hear initial remarks from the embassies of a number of these independent countries that are now here in Washington. And we're going to go by rank, but then also by a letter of the alphabet. And so we're going to start with Ambassador Khazar Ibrahim of Azerbaijan. To you, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador Hoagland. I hope that since we're already independent, we do not have minders here. I thank CPC, Afghan, Nifty, Ambassador, all the board for this 8th and another wonderful event. The topic is how to maximize the middle corridor. I think that the first thing what we need to do in order to maximize is actually to do absolutely the opposite. We need to minimize. And already here we heard from the Assistant Secretary Venkataraman about the importance of stability and predictability. Of course, challenges and opportunities are important, Ambassador Hoagland, as you mentioned. But stability and predictability is a key, not only for businesses, but also for our partners. And Ambassador Pommersheim, in his speech, he also mentioned about the background, about the companies who have already been involved in the region, and learning from them their experience that also contributes to the predictability for future endeavors and engagements of the US and other companies. But how do we do that? How do we minimize the risks, costs for the companies, the obstacles? We do engage. This is a key. We do it multilaterally through organizations like Organization of Turkic States, through which we are working very, very closely on issues like customs fees, on regulations, on some other things, in order to make the relations among the states and our cooperation with our partners much smoother and with less obstacles. We do it also trilaterally, for example. The case could be Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. And we do it bilaterally with our brotherly nations in Central Asia. So we are minimizing, and we have to minimize risks, costs, and obstacles. What else we should do? We should also modify. I looked on the agenda, and I saw that how you describe the middle corridor is providing the shortest route for trade between China and Europe. I would a little bit disagree. That's why I want to modify it. I don't think it's only for goods, and I don't think it's only between China and Europe. Middle corridor is basically part of what we all knew from history of a Silk Road. And Silk Road was not only about the goods, it was about technology, and you mentioned some of it. It was also about culture, it was about ideology, it was about people-to-people contacts. So therefore, I think we should modify and don't think only from the perspective of delivering the goods through this middle corridor. I think wind is a new silk. And Azerbaijan proposed, and I think it gets recognition also not only in the United States, but also in Europe, creating a Caspian European Union Green Energy Corridor, which is basically middle corridor too, but it's not just goods. It's about molecules. It's about wind. It's about big capacity we have in the Caspian Sea. And on that, we're also working very closely with our Central Asian partners. For example, Uzbekistan already is one of the most interested parties to that. With that, we can use this wind potential, the renewable energy source, to transport electricity to European Union countries. And we're working very closely with our partners in Georgia, Romania, and Hungary. We already signed a memorandum to build a Black Sea submarine cable to take the Caspian, basically 100% Azerbaijani wind energy electricity to European market. The last but not least, I think we should also multiply. We should multiply our capacities. We have, which is basically part of the middle corridor, infrastructure points like Alat port in Azerbaijan. We're having infrastructure projects like Baku-Tbilisi cars, but their capacities are not enough for our plans and for the demands we're getting from our partners. So therefore, with 100% of Azerbaijan's own investment, Baku-Tbilisi cars capacity has increased dramatically. And we're working very closely, and pretty soon the capacity of Alat Caspian port, which is basically 40 miles from Baku city, will jump from 15 million tons to 25 million tons per year. And our Uzbek partners, friends, and brothers are already investing and being part of this port. But we also need to multiply not only capacity of our logistical infrastructure, we need to multiply also the number of our partners and friends. So we hope we can work with all partners interested in the world, but we also hope that the United States will remain as one of the most important and steadfast friends in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Ambassador. I'm very, very pleased that you brought to everyone's attention what I think everyone in this room knows, but doesn't always get mentioned, and that is that the new middle corridor is really the old Silk Road. The Silk Road of the Middle Ages, of the Islamic Renaissance of the Middle Ages. And it was not just for trading goods, although certainly trading goods was important. It was trading culture and trading people-to-people contacts. And that is still occurring today, thank God. Our next speaker is across the Caspian, and our next speaker is Ambassador Aminbayev from the Kyrgyz Republic. Ambassador?
Thank you very much, Ambassador Huglang, dear ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. First of all, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the Caspian Policy Center, especially Mr. Nifty, his team, for organizing today's forum. As ambassador of my country, today I am participating in this forum for the third time. And this forum, I think, has already become an excellent platform for discussing the key issues of trade and the economic cooperation between the United States and the countries, Caspian and the Central Asia. And I would like also to welcome responsible officials from State Department, Department of Commerce, and my colleagues who are participating here. Your participation highlights the importance of today's forum's topic and our shared commitment to developing the cooperation between our countries. You know very well, Central Asia is one of the strategically important regions of the world, and it plays key role in global economic development for many reasons. First, Central Asia has all kinds of necessary natural resources for economic development. Natural gas, oil, human resources, clean water resources, critical minerals. The second, Central Asia is located in the heart of Eurasia continent, which connects east with west, south, and north. And the third, we are all together 80 million people. It's a sufficient market for the present American and global business. What about my country? Kyrgyz Republic is located in the heart of Central Asia. Mountainous country. 90% territory of our country covered by mountains. We have huge resource potential for economic development. For example, 35% of clean water resources of former Soviet Union countries located in Kyrgyz Republic. Being mountainous country, we have all necessary critical minerals for economic development. So, what do we need today? Today, we need technology, as you mentioned. Today, we need strengthening cooperation. We need alternative routes, trade routes. Therefore, Kyrgyz Republic, being heart of Central Asia, has always advocated for the comprehensive development of the region and its trade routes, and is always ready to contribute and to achieve this goal. For example, as part of this goal, to achieve this goal. And, the transport infrastructure development of Kyrgyz Republic, together with neighboring countries, we are planning to implement large-scale regional project, railway construction project. The completion of a regional project that will allow Central Asia, Asian goods and resources to reach global markets and via sea routes. I think it's very important, crucial for economic development of the entire region. In this context, the completion of the China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan railway construction holds special significance for all of us. We consider this project the project of our century. It has enormous economic and social significance for the entire region. This railway will create a direct and efficient link between the countries of Central Asia, extending to Pakistan, providing the shorter and the faster route to deliver goods and goods to the world market. Most importantly, this railway will promote economic integration between our countries, strengthen the regional cooperation and stability. And it will facilitate efficient movement not only of goods, but also of people, promoting cultural exchange and a mutual understanding, and it's very important for us. For example, it's very important for us to improve trade and economic relation between our countries, between Central Asian countries and between Caucasus, and to achieve and to further institutionalization of diplomatic relations between our countries. Dear ladies and gentlemen, regarding the middle corridor, it's also of great importance for us, especially for road and railroad transport from Kyrgyzstan to European countries. This road will become another basis for uniting region and ensuring not only the economic growth, but also economic security. Our president pays great importance to strengthening our country's transit potential and the Central Asian region. We are actively working on building new roads, modernizing existing transport arteries to integrate into major international transport networks. Our goal is to create sustainable and efficient infrastructure that will contribute to economic development of Kyrgyz Republic and strengthen trade relations between our regions. At the same time, dear ladies and gentlemen, we understand the importance of unity and find the common ground. In this regard, we are open to all initiatives and the projects for regional development. Dear colleagues, I hope that this forum will give an impulse to further expansion, mutual beneficial cooperation. The Kyrgyz Republic reaffirms its readiness for continuous active dialogue on all matters of interest, analyzing existing problems and seeking ways to solve them. And we advocate for contribute the open initiatives from our partners in Central Asia, the Caucasus, Turkey, and the United States across areas of cooperation. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you so much for that, Ambassador. Two words I heard quite frequently there, roads and railroads. That's important, and I'm so glad that you focused on sustainable communication and transportation routes. That's what is opening up and tying this entire region to the rest of the world. It always has been historically a part of the world, but in the modern world of technology, this is very, very important, and that's where the Middle Corridor is playing a key role. I would next like to recognize Ambassador Önal of Turkey, and I say recognize because of a 19th century tradition that an ambassador is not to speak in public until he or she has presented credentials to the leader of the country. This is still being scheduled. We look forward to hearing from you at our very next event because we know you will be credentialed very soon. So thank you for coming today, sir. Our next ambassadorial speaker is from, again, Central Asia, the important country of Uzbekistan. And this is Ambassador Siddiqov. I invite you to the podium. It's your turn, sir.
Ambassador Hongland, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, Assalamu alaikum. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Caspian Policy Center for organizing this significant event and bringing us all together today. Taking this opportunity, I would like to invite Ambassador Hongland to New Uzbekistan. You free go to everywhere, especially nightclubs. We have very nice nightclubs in Tashkent now. I hope that you will enjoy it. So Uzbekistan now, strategically positioned in Central Asia, is committed to enhance regional connectivity and fostering sustainable development through support of various economic corridors. We aim to boost trade, strengthen economic ties, and promote regional integration, ultimately contributing to the prosperity and stability of Central Asia. Uzbekistan possesses significant natural resources, including oil, gas, critical minerals that are high demanded in the West, including in the United States. Uzbekistan ranks 4th in the world in the gold reserves, 7th in the gold mining, 8th in the natural gas production, 10th in copper reserves, and 7th in uranium reserves. Our economy is most diversified with GDP more than $100 billion in 2023, growing at a stable rate of 6%. Our doing business ranking improved by 7 positions last year. Foreign trade turnover reached more than $70 billion in 2023 and increased more than 25%. Uzbekistan primarily trade value-added goods with the other Central Asian states. Exports rose by 30% to $25 billion comparing to 2022. We have initiated the construction of the China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan railways with our foreign partners. These strategic projects will fundamentally transform the geopolitics and economies of the region, turning Central Asia into the global transit hub, connecting North and the South, East and the West. As you know that, under the leadership of President of Uzbekistan, massive democratic economic reforms going on, which increase our export potential and our economic potential. That's why we need access to the new markets, diversify our economic ties. In this regard, I would like to say thank you to Azerbaijan and my dear friend, Azerbaijan ambassador, for supporting Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan already investing to the ports of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan become a gateway for Uzbekistan to get access to European markets. Uzbekistan has GSP plus regime with European Union, and we are ready to export to European markets more than 6,000 types of products. We invite investors to international organizations to participate in this major regional project to restore Great Silk Road on modern foundations. I would like to tell you that today we are witnessing growing interest of American business doing business in Uzbekistan and Central Asia. Last year, we signed an agreement with the biggest American company, IRA Product, for more than $10 billion investment to energy sector of Uzbekistan. Nowadays, more than 300 American companies operating in Uzbekistan, including Caterpillar, John Deere, IRA Product, Boeing. We have a Boeing Center, Honeywell Business Center. In this regard, I think that we show that American government, US government, has to repeal Jackson-Vanik Amendment for Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan. Jackson-Vanik legislation is the heritage from the past, which not associated with Central Asia. We have to open the new page and move forward. I think US government has to give more support to American business now. It's interesting to have more access to the Central Asian market, which are located in the heart of Central Asia. And again, taking this opportunity, I would like to say thank you to Caspian Policy Center for supporting Central Asian countries, to helping us to introduce our potential and to promote our joint cooperation. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Just as an example of how things can change rather quickly in history, I caught that you mentioned 300 American companies now in Uzbekistan, including some of our largest and our most important, and that's because of the new kinds of economic and financial sector reforms that are taking place in Uzbekistan. And I congratulate you and your leadership in your country, sir, on that. Congratulations. I think also it was very important that you raised the need to repeal the Jackson-Vanik Amendment. I am no longer with the US government, and so I can speak my mind. I can speak honestly, and I would like to say I firmly support the long overdue getting rid of Jackson-Vanik Amendment. It's from the old days. We are now in new days. So we are going to move forward here now. We have heard from Ambassador Siddiqov. We're going to move back across the Caspian Sea this time. We're going to go to the beautiful country of Armenia, and I would like to call the Deputy Chief of Mission, Mr. Artur Gregorian, to the podium to speak.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Hoagland, Assistant Secretary Venkataraman, Ambassador Pomersheim, and thank you, Afghan and CPS, for inviting us for this very important forum. I would like to convey the brief remarks of Ambassador of Armenia, Lilit Makunts. Armenia is vitally interested in opening all regional communications and promoting transport connectivity in accordance with international law and based on full respect for the sovereignty and jurisdiction of countries. As a landlocked middle-income country, Armenia attaches great importance to the resilient global and regional trade and connectivity, which are critical to release its full economic potential and promote sustainable development. The removal of the political barriers that hinder the free movement of people, goods, and services, especially in terms of ensuring the economic and social rights and the rights to development for all peoples, is fundamental. The opening of all regional communications on the basis of sovereignty and national jurisdiction, as well as principles of equality and reciprocity, can create additional interdependencies complementing the stability of the region and will contribute to the integration of the South Caucasus into the global transit and supply chains. In 2023, the government of Armenia has presented the Crossroads of Peace initiative, aimed at developing transport networks between Armenia, Iran, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. through infrastructure development, including roads, railways, pipelines, cables, and electricity lines. These communications could efficiently link the Gulf, the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, offering immense benefits to all countries in our region. The Crossroads of Peace initiative underscores the significance of establishing mutual trust as the cornerstone of peace efforts. Through active engagement with neighboring countries and international partners, Armenia seeks to create new avenues of collaboration in the region. We truly believe that it will strengthen cultural ties and people-to-people contacts, as well as contribute to the political dialogue and achieve stability and lasting peace in the region. Recognizing this necessity for improved regional and international connectivity, Armenia is actively working on modernizing existing communication and transport routes, as well as building new ones. We are ready to actively collaborate with all partners to advance equitable and inclusive transport connectivity in the South Caucasus, transforming the fragmented region into a hub of cooperation, which will not only benefit the South Caucasus, but also contribute positively to global supply chains and markets, highlighting the interconnectedness of regional and global economies. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for that. I won't go into sensitive details here, but I think I can speak for everyone in the room who says we are very grateful. Who would say we are very grateful that Armenia is taking a new look at the world these days and is making new directions for its future. We wish you the very best in this endeavor, sir. Well, here we go back across the Caspian again to Kazakhstan, and we have Deputy Chief of Mission Raul Talulin. To you, sir.
Good morning, dear friends, excellencies, distinguished participants. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Nifty, Ambassador Hoagland, and Dr. Rudenschold for organizing these important and timely discussions that depict essential developments in the Caspian region. Also, it's a pleasure to see partners from US government. It's a privilege for me to greet Assistant Secretary Venkatar Maran, who just recently traveled to Kazakhstan, to our region, and I do hope encountered ongoing developments in my country and in Central Asia. And of course, Professor Kangas, happy birthday. Let me just highlight some developments we reached with our partners in our region, and I don't want to waste your time depicting the importance of the Middle Corridor. Many of you, better than me, know about it. And of course, Trans-Caspian route has a strategic and geoeconomic rationale when it comes to the supplies of energy resources and strategic goods to Europe and global market, including the United States. And I couldn't agree more with the ambassador of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ibrahim, that it's not only about the delivering goods and commodities through this corridor, which is important from my standpoint. It's developing the people-to-people connections, connecting new dots, and finding out new avenues of partnership, and of course the people-to-people connection, cultural context, I believe is also essential aspect in our endeavors. Promoting Middle Corridor as a viable and sustainable trade route resonates with the interests of not only of Kazakhstan, but also the entire Central Asia. Along with oil and gas, we are focused on transportation of common goods and critical commodities. Last year, the volume of cargo transported through the route doubled and reached 3 million tons. In March, in Baku, Kazmunaygas, and SOCAR signed the agreement to increase in the volumes of Kazakh oil transit across the territory of Azerbaijan. The agreement provides for an increase of oil shipments along the Aktau-Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan route to 2.2 million tons annually. And the next goal is to develop infrastructure projects with the prospects for further improving of investment climate. Together with Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey, we also adopted a roadmap for further simultaneous elimination of so-called bottlenecks. Implementation of the agreements will allow increasing overall capacity to 10 million tons per year by 2025. Forecasts by World Bank also depict that with significant infrastructural upgrades, this volume could increase rapidly. As Middle Corridor includes a multimodal transport capabilities, it's important to ensure seamless movement of goods by making it more efficient and cost-effective. We established a joint venture with Abu Dhabi Port to develop Caspian fleet for oil transportation and support of the offshore oil and gas exploration. The European Commission, through its Global Gateway initiative, committed 10 billion euro for sustainable transport development in Central Asia in the short term. To this extent, we echo G7 intention to foster sustainable connectivity, trade and energy links to enhance regional prosperity. We welcome more proactive engagement from our US partners, including through the global initiatives such as PGI and Mineral Security Partnership. And just, I also would like to mention that Ambassador Pomersheim highlighted the importance of profitable and bankable projects in terms of PGI initiative, and one of these exemplary projects is Waptex company projects who successfully operates in our region, and we see a huge potential for enhancing its operation not only in Kazakhstan, in the entire region. And we believe and we see that these projects fully correlates with the PGI initiatives, and we look forward to expand this partnership not only in Kazakhstan and of course with our partners from the region. And in conclusion, it's a vital part of the wider strategy of regional integration which will bolster security in the region, enhance commercial access and diversify global energy and critical mineral supplies. And let us seize the opportunities that lie ahead, forging a future of shared prosperity and cooperation. Thank you.
I don't think anyone could have said it better. The future truly is trans-Caspian in the region. We need to stop thinking about Central Asia over here, South Caucasus over there, never the twain shall meet. No, absolutely not. The twain are meeting and they're building new ways to communicate and deal with the world, and that's part of history. Ladies and gentlemen, we've moved along very smartly here, both with content but also with time. What we're going to do is take our coffee break just a bit early, but what I would like to do is invite all of our speakers so far to come back up here, and we'll take a group photo while the rest of you are getting your coffee. So thank you so much for this opening, and let's have the speakers come forward for the photo.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marcia McGraw-Olive. It is my great pleasure to moderate the panel on maximizing development impact, prioritization, and coordination. Events of the past year have shown us that the question is no longer whether the Middle Corridor, but whither. And that means how and when are we going to make it the efficient communication and trade network that we all hope it will become. Our panelists today are a stellar choice to help us answer those questions. They all have a lot of experience in the questions before us. However, I think that the challenges of PE coordination for the Middle Corridor in particular are underappreciated. let me take 1 minute to put the context behind the challenge. When I was the country manager for the World Bank in Tajikistan, I led the Strategic Coordination Council of 25 development partners. That means UN agencies, bilateral donors, international financial institutions, and nonprofit organizations. That was challenging to have complementarity among us, but we had one single client and one goal, and that was to meet the development needs of Tajikistan. Let's notch that up one level and consider CASA 1000, which was approved in 2014 and is about to become finalized. There, 4 countries were involved: Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. But we only had one project, and that was a transmission line, a power transmission line. But we had 7 major donors to make that happen. And it took many years to pull that off. Now look at the middle corridor. We're not talking about one country or one project. We're talking about, at minimum, 8 countries, maybe 10, if you count Bulgaria and Romania, as the World Bank does. It will not involve just one project, but multiple projects in both hard and soft infrastructure, and making those two work together. It's road, rail, maritime. So what we're looking at now, from a political scientist point of view, is a nightmare of collective action, because the bigger the numbers, the more difficult to coordinate. So while we're not about to slay lions, we do have a Herculean task before us. I think to put this in context to start, I'm going to ask our first speaker to tell us what has been happening since the great event in January 2024 in Brussels with the EU Investment Forum that really got this question of whither and how going. So Mr. Henrik Hololai is the OR-class advisor and the Director General of the International Partnerships of the European Commission. He's an Estonian economist and has an amazing historical role in the coordinating the work of Estonia's ascension to the European Union from 1995 to 2004. Imagine how long that took, working directly with the Prime Minister. He served as Minister of Economy in his government from 2001 to 2002, and then represented Estonia in the Convention on the Future of Europe. In 2004, he joined the Commission as head of the cabinet for the then Vice President, focusing on administration, audit, anti-fraud, and transport. In 2013, he became Deputy Secretary General of the Commission, and in 2015, he rose to Director General for Mobility and Transport, dead center in our topic. He has held his current position since April 2023. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Masha. That was a long introduction and a nice walk down the memory lane to remind me of all kinds of interesting challenges that I have lived through. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. I'm extremely pleased and privileged to be here in Washington, D.C., and have the opportunity also to address you at this exciting event, which is organized by the Caspian Policy Center, 8th time. And of course, it's always a pleasure and a privilege also to be hosted in the legendary Cosmos Club. I would first like to express my gratitude to the organizers for inviting me and giving me the chance to add the EU viewpoint and elaborate more about our intensifying cooperation with the Central Asian region. In recent years, EU-Central Asia relations have gone from strength to strength, with several high-level visits and the first ever EU-Central Asia summit to take place later this year. And there is definitely more to come, taking our partnership with Central Asia to a new level. This is supported by many ambitious economic and societal reforms which are implemented across Central Asia over the past years, which has made it a bustling and fast developing region. We wish to deepen our cooperation with all Central Asian countries, through our global gateway strategy with an offer based on partnership and human-centric approach with a strong focus on skills building, cooperative way to trade, digital and green transitions, transport connectivity in the framework of the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor. And yes, you heard me right. We very much prefer to use that phrase over the middle corridor, which doesn't necessarily capture all countries in the region. For us, the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor means all the 5 Central Asian countries together, as well as Caucasus, Turkey, and of course the European Union member states. With about 75 million people and a large young population, the region offers many opportunities. Economic development is key for the success, as is the diversification of economies and embracing new, smart, and sustainable solutions that help to create jobs and generate prosperity. EU is the second trading partner for Central Asia, accounting for 1/4 of the combined foreign trade in 2022. At the same time, EU is the biggest investor in Central Asia, with more than 40% of the cumulated investments in the region. So we have a very good base to build on, and I hope we continue to do so through deepening our cooperation and partnership in many areas, and one of those areas where the cooperation is definitely going to deepen further is in the area of critical raw materials. I have observed the positive developments in the region and the drive for modernization and reforms. I'm happy to see that the vibrant business community and more investors from Europe and the United States and like-minded countries establishing themselves in the region and contributing to the positive change and the economic development. And to be frank, it does not surprise me, as when we look at the globe and we see many geopolitical tensions and conflicts, probably more than we have observed in our lifetime, then Central Asia comes out as a region that is a pillar of stability and where we can witness positive developments and encouraging reforms amidst volatile and challenging world we currently live in. The European Union Global Gateway Strategy stands for sustainable and trusted connectivity that works for the people, the businesses, and the globe. In line with this commitment and the G7 leaders from June 2021 to launch a value-driven, high-standard and transparent infrastructure partnership to meet the global infrastructure development needs. Our Global Gateway Strategy supports the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment and is a perfect tool to work closely with our key allies like the United States and other G7 countries and the like-minded G20 countries. Across the world, the Global Gateway aims to mobilize up to 300 billion in investments between 2021 and 2027 and is implemented in the Team Europe approach, meaning the EU, the member states of EU, the development finance institutions, the private sector. And we do that to reach the scale and create tangible and visible impact on the ground. Having that in mind, one of the key projects that we are focusing on and bringing along also the private sector and international financial institutions is particularly the development of the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor into a modern, multimodal economic gateway. This is undoubtedly the new Silk Road. The EU sees the Trans-Caspian Corridor as a highly relevant route in the current geopolitical context. You can change many things, but one thing you cannot change is geography. And it is now time to use also the geographic advantage that was so well known and effectively used already more than 2,000 years ago, and make it serve today's needs in a modern and efficient way. And like already the ambassador of Azerbaijan earlier said, that this corridor is not only about moving goods. Definitely, we see the corridor also as a corridor for ideas, knowledge, innovation, and providing connectivity for people and businesses. The Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor is a project that supports the development of a contemporary land bridge between Europe and Central Asia, strengthens the role of Central Asia as a connectivity hub, and fosters as well as facilitates economic cooperation and closer regional integration between all 5 Central Asian countries. It is in all our interest to make the corridor competitive, predictable, affordable, sustainable, and smart by effectively bringing down the barriers, which in turn can unlock huge economic potential in the region. To get a better understanding of the needs and to make the corridor a success, we launched together with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development a study on sustainable transport corridors between EU and Central Asia. That was presented more or less a year ago, last June, and which took a deep look into the challenges related to the corridor. One of the key findings of the study is that the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor creates new opportunities and has the potential to handle much more land-based trade between Europe and Asia if missing links, bottlenecks, capacity shortages, border crossings, and other issues that are currently limiting connectivity are addressed. I guess we would have said that also without the study, but then again now we have also a very solid basis for our assessments. And today, of course, all this is more topical than ever. The northern route is in decline and will not recover in the foreseeable future. The Suez Canal, which is responsible for 40% of the world's seaborne traffic, is under siege by the Houthis, which have basically stopped Western-owned vessels to use it. But the Suez Canal suffers also from congestion challenges and constantly rising user fees. And there are also growing tensions in and around the South China Sea. All this represents a perfect storm for the development of the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor and paves conditions for the viability and opportunity of the corridor. In a way, it's now or never. I remember when I spoke about this corridor, a land corridor from Asia via Central Asia and Caucasus and Turkey, bypassing Russia, more than a decade ago. Those who listened, there were many who nodded, but in reality, nothing happened. This is also a good example that things change only when there is a crisis. Otherwise, there is too much complacency for a change. But now we have this unique opportunity that we must seize and cannot fail. And this is not only an opportunity for the land corridor to link Asia and Europe, it is also a vehicle to foster and facilitate regional trade and cooperation and integration in Central Asia, but equally in Southern Caucasus and Turkey. During the Soviet era, the region was purposefully not integrated, but only through northern routes to Russia. This was a policy of divide and rule. However, we have now an opportunity to put it right, make the mend. And may I remind you that the Silk Road that we draw the parallel to was never an actual road or a single route, but it was a network of routes. And this is what the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor is as well. And it would bring Central Asian countries much closer also to each other, closer to good partners, and closer to Europe, creating new opportunities to all. In close cooperation with all Central Asian countries, we organized a successful Investors Forum that has also been referred to here earlier, what took place at the end of January in Brussels, where we had almost 600 participants, many from the private sector as well, and good participation from the like-minded countries, including the United States, to discuss together investment opportunities related to the implementation of the corridor. The Investors Forum took forward the conclusions of the study and supported the EU Central Asia political commitments to enhance and reinforce connectivity and turn them into tangible operational deliverables. To ensure the outcomes of the Investors Forum, it is important to work closely with your governments, international financial institutions, the businesses, on how to prioritize projects further and how to engage with partners. This is also an excellent opportunity to attract more European investments and strengthen the presence of companies from the EU as well as from the other like-minded countries such as the United States in the region. The key deliverables of the forum are the overall commitment to invest 10 billion euro in sustainable transport connectivity in Central Asia as combined contribution from the involved international partners, and the creation of the coordination platform for the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor. The coordination platform will be launched on the June 12th in Astana, so in a few weeks' time, and the aim of the platform is to provide a permanent framework that will drive forward the implementation of projects in Central Asia in a consistent and coordinated way to achieve the long-term objective of making the Trans-Caspian Corridor a more sustainable, safer, faster, smarter route, linking Europe and Central Asia in no more than 15 days. It will also support investors and key actors in mobilizing estimated 18.5 billion euro necessary for the completion of the 40 priority projects which were identified in our study and that are needed for being able to make this corridor effective. We are also looking how the coordination platform could effectively cooperate and complement existing efforts in the region, such as the Trans-Caspian trade route, a coordination mechanism for the soft connectivity measures that is spearheaded by the United States. There is no doubt that the coordination among all partners is very important, and it also helps to make sure that limited resources are used in a most efficient way, avoiding overlaps and delivering complementarity. And this has also been one of the topics that I had the pleasure to discuss yesterday with my US colleagues in the State Department and also Department of Commerce, and of course happy to see Tamar here, who will be adding her comments and flavor to that later on. From the beginning, we need to adopt the approach of a single seamless corridor, linking up all the relevant actors to the development of the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor and bring in all countries that are part of the network of corridors. The platform will have as its main role the promotion of the corridor and the coordination of efforts towards the implementation of projects in hard and soft infrastructure in Central Asia, starting with the key priorities identified in the study. We envisage a consultation and coordination structure that will meet on regular and voluntary basis, bringing together the relevant like-minded players, donors, investors, stakeholders, beneficiaries involved in the implementation and operation of the measures to further develop the corridor. Certainly, one important aspect that is part of our discussion on launching the platform is the involvement of the private sector. And I can assure you that we are very much aware that the success of the platform, as the overall success of the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor, will depend on the solid engagement of private businesses. This is essentially an economic corridor and a significant economic driver for the whole of Central Asia, as well as all other countries along the corridor. The EU's engagement includes sharing our experience gained over 3 decades of seamlessly connecting the European Union member states through the trans-European transport networks. There are many challenges related to the seamless and smooth functioning of the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor. In addition to the investments in hard infrastructure, there is the need to invest in the soft infrastructure and focus on trade facilitation, digitalization, tracking and tracing, electronic freight documents, smoother border crossings, and customs procedures, just to mention a few. It must be an affordable corridor with transparent and predictable pricing, common tariffs, and increased operational efficiency. We need effective corridor coordination throughout the whole corridor and close cooperation by all partners. But I have no doubt that the determination and good cooperation will get there, and there is so much to gain and win for all. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I will also add one more element. When we talk about the corridor, we see it coming from Central Asia, through the Caspian Sea, to the Southern Caucasus, then Turkey, Black Sea, and then we talk about the Black Sea ports of the European Union. I think that we equally should keep in mind that this corridor in the future will also end up and bring goods and be integral part of the ports that you have in Ukraine, Odessa and Mariupol, once Ukraine has won the war and the reconstruction has started. Of course, the EU's cooperation and engagement with Central Asia is much deeper and richer and more intense than I managed to describe here. It is important to strengthen and deepen our engagement, as it will bring more investments as well as new opportunities to the region. I'm glad that we are doing it in good cooperation with our key partners, such as the United States, as well as other like-minded countries, and we can mobilize a lot of the like-minded countries and their companies also to invest in the region. And many of them are already there, from Japan, from Korea, of course, from Turkey, from the Middle East. As we deepen our engagement on the Trans-Caspian corridor, I believe our future steps of actions should achieve two things. Partners need to remain mindful of the overlaps and variations in geographical coverage of their engagement, while making sure that we take the practical steps to effectively come together around a shared agenda and to deliver results on the ground. Thank you all for your kind attention. It was a real pleasure and honor to address you.
Thank you. That was superlative, and you've added these Ukrainian ports, which I am very pleased to take note of. I'm now pleased to introduce Ambassador Erin Elizabeth McKee, who is the Assistant Administrator of the Europe and Eurasia Bureau at USAID. She's a member of the Senior Foreign Service with the rank of Career Minister. She brings extensive foreign policy and development experience from around the globe, including the Pacific Islands, Indonesia, the Middle East, Russia, and Central Asia, of course, where she served as the USAID's Regional Mission Director, managing programs in all of the C5 countries. Additionally, she's had, I think, positions that I find very interesting from a development point of view, from an internal point of view, and that is on policy planning and learning and on talent management. And all those make USAID a stronger organization. So thank you, Ambassador.
Thank
yes,
you.
We're sure.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think it is still morning.
Yeah.
No, we're all living in dog years and time is relative. I would like to thank the Caspian Policy Center for inviting me here today and for hosting this crucial forum. As my colleague said, the time is now, and it's actually overtime or overdue. But it's an honor to be here to discuss such an important topic with all of you. So USAID's increasing commitment to the development of the middle corridor, and I know we focus particularly for Central Asia on the Trans-Caspian, but we don't want a corridor to nowhere. And so we connect the dots, and we've been focused, my team and I in our bureau, on obviously the South Caucasus element to make sure that that throughput, that integration, that Euro-Atlantic potential is fulsome. And you know, each piece as it comes along needs to be connected, hardware, software, and integrated. But I think the big picture, and thank you, I also thank you for introducing the Ukrainian ports and obviously the vital throughput and opportunity that the Black Sea affords this corridor or these multiple networks of corridors as they evolve. But it's not just, the middle corridor is not just a strategic investment in infrastructure. It's a testament to the broader mission that I think all of you in this room are dedicated to, and that is promoting inclusive, sustainable development across Europe and Eurasia, from Central Asia to the South Caucasus, to the Balkans, and beyond. Since Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the development of the Middle Corridor has become more necessary. It's unfortunate that a crisis of this magnitude has spurred the interest. It's overdue, but never waste a good crisis, and that recognition that we need to diversify connectivity, that we need to offer alternatives and choices to the countries that we support and work in has never been more critical than at this point in time in history. So this point in time, it's become urgent, but also more possible. Putin's reckless and unjust war has prompted several countries in Central Asia and the South Caucasus to reduce their dependency on Russia and to build new trade and energy partnerships that serve their interests to diversify these options. In this context, we are ready to work with partner governments to pursue new development opportunities benefiting the region that promotes not only connectivity, not only diversification, but their own sovereignty, prosperity, and ultimately economic independence. One of the critical questions that we're addressing today is how governments and international financial institutions can maximize the utility of this trade, transport, and energy corridor, and not only maximize, but catalyze efforts going forward. The last few years have yielded some very promising results, but there is much more that can be done to expand the Middle Corridor and accelerate its development and connections. So yet, as we move forward, as we seize this moment, as we recognize that it's both urgent and vital, we also need to think about what kind of Middle Corridor we want to seek, that we want to support. While we would all like to see a faster, more efficient set of linkages, able to handle heavier volumes of trade, transport, and energy, we should also ask what will be the character of the transactions along the route itself, which will give it its vitality, that will ensure local economic opportunity, in addition to attracting new firms and partners. And obviously, the private sector has an outsized role to play in this. But in laying the groundwork, the enabling environment, those connections, that software that we need to bring, what is the character of those investments of our time, our effort, need to make sure that this is not only sustainable, but truly delivers on the promise that we believe the connectivity offers to the nations that we're working with. The alternative is bogged down by corruption, inconsistent rules and policies, or even arbitrary rules that provide access to some but not all. Or will the corridor be one that's based on transparency, rule of law, free flow, not only of goods, services, and people, but of information, and to also protect property rights and the impact at the local level that the benefit will bring, but also to make sure that we take that very felt experience, that, as you said, human-centric experience in mind as we look across what is truly a massive undertaking, but will be felt, seen, and realized at the very local level. USAID's newly launched almost 24.5 million flagship initiative in the South Caucasus region is accelerating Middle Corridor development. It's encompassing rail, road, air, and sea transportation. And this multi-year program will establish vital connections between Central Asia and Europe. And I mentioned the character of the investment because we worked really hard as we developed this flagship program, which is sort of our re-entry point, to make sure that we listened, learned, understood local context, and the variances not only in geography, but recent conflicts and other challenges, to use our investment in the Middle Corridor to not create additional barriers or opportunities for friction, but to actually break them down, to be able to really demonstrate what's in it for me and why does diversifying my economy, my energy source, both generation and trade, my ability to move people and goods and services freely, transparently, and certainly free from corruption. Why should I do that? What's in it for me? And demonstrating that in real time to the people of the countries that the Middle Corridor will connect is at the heart of the work of the flagship program we just launched. So this investment is designed to unlock about $200 million in infrastructure investment. And at the end of the day, when we're successful, we'll enhance transport efficiency by 30%, coupled with a 20% reduction in transit time, all while ensuring strong environmental practices and inclusive local development. By supporting, back to demonstrating what's in it for me, by supporting job creation across multiple sectors, including trade, transport, and logistics, we envision a ripple effect of prosperity that improves the lives of the local communities where the work will take place. In addition to the South Caucasus, our sister bureau, the Asia Bureau, where Central Asia inappropriately is housed right now, they've invested over $24 million in its Trade Central Asia activity, which has effectively lowered key impediments to trade within the region. And since 2021, this program has helped harmonize customs and border procedures, facilitated public-private dialogues on trade and investment, and built relationships between firms across borders, and supported improvements to the Middle Corridor, such as a modernized terminal operating system at the Caspian port of Kurik. In the Caucasus, USAID is integrating Armenia in existing trade routes running through the Middle Corridor. For example, USAID is supporting a transport assessment that will evaluate the economic gains that Armenia and its neighbors will realize by strengthening commercial linkages between each other. This assessment, it's a rapid assessment, will complement Prime Minister Pashinyan's Crossroads of Peace initiative and underscores how regional connectivity will benefit the South Caucasus. But moreover, it will support job creation, creating greater livelihoods, not just for the investment and creation of this connectivity, but for generations to come. And so while these actions are a positive step in the right direction, we absolutely recognize that further development of the Middle Corridor must involve a multiplicity of actors from the public sector, the private sector, however many countries, and we can count them even beyond, which is a diplomatic challenge. I was going to use a different word. And for this reason, I have pressed USAID and my team, particularly in the field, to explore new ways to coordinate with international financial institutions and partner governments to support, we're stronger together. Let's find the gaps. Donor coordination is really hard. Let's move from donor coordination to donor execution. And I don't mean killing the donors. I mean doing things together in a way that is substantive. And again, delivering in real time the proof of concept. What's in it for me? And so while these actions are a positive step in the right direction, I've asked everyone to explore new ways that we can connect these dots. You heard about the trade activity in Central Asia, what we're launching in the Caucasus, what our partners, like-minded and other donors, are doing, and how can we ensure that we make our own linkages through the work to deliver on a Middle Corridor that has the character, the opportunity, and the truly positive felt economic prosperity for the individuals on the ground. That's what we need to be mindful of and move forward to. So I'm excited to announce that just last week, USAID signed a new memorandum of understanding with the European Reconstruction Bank for Reconstruction and Development Bank last Tuesday. And the agreement it captures what I just described, that we continue to coordinate, connect the dots, leverage what we can, mobilize what we can, but do it in a way that projects and amplifies the character of the investments that we're making in a way that the people in the communities, in the countries where the work will take place, understand not only what's in it for them, but that this choice, this opportunity, this diversification, and ultimately the investment in the future, is not coming at a cost to their sovereignty. It's not coming at a cost to the reform agendas that they've been putting forward or the further erosion of democratic institutions. And so this is one example of moving from donor coordination more swiftly to donor execution. Again, we're not going to kill the donors. We are going to do more palpable, meaningful, intentional work together in real time and in an accelerated fashion. So the middle corridor, as we've heard, has immense potential to create new, more prosperous future for all of the countries that are a part of it. And with additional support, it will serve as a major gateway and thoroughfare connecting Central Asia and the South Caucasus to Europe and beyond. And so to realize this vision, finding ways to build closer cooperation amongst all of the regional partners is crucial for enhancing the mutual benefits that we see, both food security, energy security, health security, security of democracy and the institutions that we hold so dear, by creating these partnerships in a way that demonstrate alternatives to other models. So by working together to invest strategically in infrastructure and facilitate the policy reforms that are so necessary, and to support open and accountable governance along the corridor, we can lay the groundwork for a more prosperous, vibrant, and interconnected future. So thank you once again for your attention and participation in this critical discourse. I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you very much. I noted 3 additional points. There's a lot of shared vision, but I have to say you're pointing out more about the South Caucasus was critical to talk about, not a corridor to nowhere. Your description of the vision is also a broader one, if I can be honest, because going down to the local level and having communities appreciate and participate in this endeavor, what's in it for me, I appreciate that very much. Now I'm going to turn to our World Bank representative. I'm very pleased to introduce Winnie Wang. She's the lead infrastructure specialist and program leader for Europe and Central Asia. She was professionally trained at MIT in transport planning and has worked on urban transport roads, railways, and other projects, not just in developing Asia, but in developed countries in North America and Europe. Recently, she's just returned from Sri Lanka, where she developed and implemented several large infrastructure projects focusing on urban transport and climate sustainable rural connectivity. She's also coordinated exactly what this, I don't know if we're calling it middle corridor or the TCTC, but we have a disagreement about orthography here, so we'll go to middle corridor and TCTC. That it is about digital development, energy, and transport sector projects, and she did that across 3 very different countries, Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. Now she's going to be managing a similar portfolio for the World Bank. She is already, but will be doing it from Tashkent beginning this summer. So we welcome you. Would you like to sit here or would you like to go up there? Okay, fine.
Thank you, Masha.
You're going to follow the lead of
Yes,
Mr.
thank you.
Halalai. Good.
Thank you, Masha, for the introduction. Good morning. I just checked, still before 12. But thank you for the excellent 2 speeches by the EU representative and USA. I think I'm going to get a little bit to the kitchen soon in my talk. I think it's a perfect panel. We can complement each other. In case some of you haven't heard, in the World Bank, we also recently published a very comprehensive study. It's called the Middle Trade and Transport Corridor. We also had a big event last month, the spring meetings chaired by 2 of our vice presidents for the Middle Corridor event. And our study argues that with the right policies, as our speakers mentioned, investments and collaborative approaches, the volume of the trade flows along the Middle Corridor can triple, and the travel time can be reduced by half by 2030. And we all know the great potential of Middle Corridor, but also it's very striking to see that the corridor has failed to sustain the 30% increase in traffic that followed the immediate aftermath of the war in Ukraine. While the experience, showed the great potential of the corridor, it also revealed its gaps, with every one of them threatening the attractiveness of the entire corridor. Because we all know, just like every chain, every corridor, the strength of the whole route will be defined by its weakest link. In the World Bank, we have supported, financed a lot of countries on this kind of regional corridor projects. And what we have learned how to further strengthen the middle corridor. I would like to share with you 3 points. Number one, corridors are multidimensional and beyond just the transport infrastructure. Corridors are about trade policies, trade finance, logistics services, and support for the value chain development, as well as trade facilitation. This is why our corridor operations typically include institutional development within and between countries. Especially for our middle corridor, we have seen tremendous gains from leveraging digital solutions for operational efficiency, but also for users of the corridor who can then more easily transact and track their shipments. Second lessons we learned is that one of the defining characteristics of the middle corridor, and currently, which is a source of inefficiency, is its multimodal nature. Many of the frictions and the poor reliability of the corridor are at the points of handshake between different modes of transport. For example, rail and sea freight and operators. However, this perceived hurdle can be turned into an opportunity to use all elements of the system and to decarbonize transport. For example, one of the projects that the World Bank we are supporting in the middle corridor is the modernization of the Sivers to Georgia border railway, to the Georgia border railway line in Turkey, which will complement another operation on the last mile rail connectivity across the Turkish network. These investments will significantly increase capacity and facilitate the shift from road transport, from trucks to railways, which are greener. This will also then contribute to making the middle corridor a green logistic corridor and to meet Turkey's decarbonization aspirations. The third lessons we learned is that we see great impacts when projects are designed to address specific bottlenecks and to attain a defined level of service. To this end, in the World Bank, we have employed a suite of regional and global modeling tools to design corridor solutions tailored to specific nodes, links, and to what they produce, as well as opportunities to lock new demands. I would like to echo to the speakers mentioned, let's not forget about private capital mobilization. There are limited public resources there. On many corridors, the bulk of services are provided by state-owned enterprises, SOEs, and the private sector. And it's important that these stakeholders are engaged to catalyze the service provision that is responsive to the demand and commensurate with investment in infrastructure. For example, in India, the World Bank Group, as a group, is supporting the development of a 1,360 kilometer waterway through a USD 375 million loan, while our sister branch IFC is providing transaction advisory for USD 30 million concession for developing an export-import cargo supply chain for Nepal-Indian trade. Even though this is under implementation, this kind of project already realized a 50% year-on-year growth on waterborne commercial traffic and 25% reduction in transit time. I'm sharing the example just to show that similar synergies could be deployed in the middle corridor, such as by strengthening the commercial orientation of our railway undertakings and promoting private investment in logistics facilities. To this end, the World Bank Group, we have also identified critical actions to address 10 bottlenecks that can triple the trade and reduce travel time by half by 2030. We estimated the cost of these priority investment at about $7 billion. Some of them will require public funding. Some can be achieved through public-private partnerships. Several projects have already secured funding from the World Bank and other partners. Other projects may require additional government action. I can go through with you the 10 priority actions, and I think I asked the organizers
No,
to
yeah, just we
go
handed
through
it out.
that. You have the printout. So I can quickly go through that. Number one is to create a railway bypass to reduce the congestion in the Almaty metro area. We estimated the cost of this is about $640 million US, and currently Katajer, the Kazakhstan railway, is leading the effort to organize its financing. The second action is about Kazakhstan-Uzbekistan border crossing, which had very long waiting time. We recommended the creation of a new railway connection between Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. The cost estimation is about $650 million US, and also Katajer is leading the effort to organize financing for this. The third critical action is that we all know the level of Caspian Sea is dropping due to climate change, affecting our port operations. So we are suggesting the port of Aktau needs fit-for-purpose equipment and increase berth capacity. It's about $120 million US for the cost. Again, the Kazakhstan Railway, Katajer, they need to organize finance for this action to advance. The fourth action is about the lack of rolling stock, particularly the locomotives in Georgia. We recommended to increase the amount of rolling stock, and the cost is about $250 million. For this action, the Georgian rail debt capacity needs solution, and this can be explored under the PPP approach we mentioned earlier. The fifth action is about enhance the, this is the wrong name, the Akhakalaki-Turkey border rail connection and expand its rail station. This station is a point of gauge change, and it could become a bottleneck when a new line construction is constructed from this new railway point to the Sivas in Turkey. By making this rail line dual gauge, the change can take place in Georgia or Turkey, thus can expand the operational flexibility. This recommendation action will cost about $50 million US, we estimated, and the reconfiguration of trains at this station could also be expedited by developing a multi-modal container terminal or marshalling yard. The sixth action,
Winnie, if you don't mind, maybe we could just refer to the handout for the remainder ones. Okay.
Yeah, those handouts, I didn't put the cost estimate, just give a sense to the colleagues. Our estimation is about $7 billion for all of these 10 actions.
Well, we can maybe add that to this distribution later.
Yeah, thank you.
Costs.
So, but anyway, you guys have that handout. So these 10 are the critical actions we also announced during our 3 meetings last month. And also several of our speakers talk about coordination. And we agree that with a very wide range of stakeholders for the Central Asia and the Middle Corridor, coordination is critical. Specifically, we think for inter-country and government level, we need more harmonization, international agreement, and joint ventures. Secondly, for the inter-organization and government agency level, we need consistent policies, programs, and tools within the country. And the third level, at organizational and interdepartment level, we need more consistent operations, infrastructure design, and equipment. And as mentioned, a platform for action will enable great coordination and investment across the Middle Corridor. And we're excited to hear the event, TCTC, and in Astana on June the 10th. So thank you so much, and I look forward to the exchange. We can, shape our engagement to realize the real potential of Middle Corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's now move on to Tamar Satterwhite, who is the Senior Counsel for the Commercial Law Development Program at the Office of the General Counsel in the Department of Commerce. She oversees the Trans-Caspian Enhancement Project, which is going to be much about what she'll discuss. but she specializes in matters related to international trade law, digital trade, customs, trade facilitation, government procurement, and women's economic development. She's had a career in the private sector before that. So may I introduce Tamar?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
It's delighted to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be brief. I know we have delicious lunch, so I'm not going to be in the way of that. So, yes, briefly, I do represent the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Commercial Law Development Program, CLDP. We are housed under the General Counsel's office, but we are the technical assistance arm of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Since about 2022, right after the invasion of Ukraine, CLDP had proposed to the State Department a proposal to help Central Asian countries develop alternative trade routes. And since then, we've been engaged very closely with our partners at the State Department, and our project on the Trans-Caspian Trade Route Corridors Enhancement has been furthering the goals of the C5+1 diplomatic platform, and also has been supportive of the Department of State's Economic Resilience Initiative in Central Asia. We are focused on more soft connectivity measures. Soft measures are equally important as hard infrastructure investments. Since 2023, we have held 3 regional events, engagements that involve the C5 countries of Central Asia, as well as Georgia and Azerbaijan. We also involve the private sector. As my colleague from the EU mentioned, it is crucial and essential to have the perspective and the viewpoints of the private sector in order to really develop concrete recommendations and actionable lines of efforts that would enhance the competitiveness of this corridor. So the private sector engagement has been crucial and focal for our engagements under this project. So through our engagements since 2023, we've been able to develop a joint action plan on soft connectivity measures. I'm going to go into that a little bit later. And also, we've been able to launch a coordination platform focused on soft connectivity measures that is closely linked with our EU partners' coordination platform efforts that focus largely, as I understand, on hard infrastructure investments. It's hard for me to hear. Thank you. As I mentioned, so we were able to develop a joint action plan on soft connectivity measures. It is a strategic document that does capture comprehensively all of the priority issues that have been part of many different roadmaps and strategic documents that have been developed by other organizations. So it is a comprehensive, consolidated document that covers all priority issues that affect the soft connectivity measures that impact this corridor. As I mentioned, it has been coordinated with many other organizations. It also remains a dynamic and adaptable document that is capable of being augmented and updated as the lines of efforts are being implemented or other needed technical assistance are identified. We can augment and add to the document. It is a live and evolving document. It consists of 6 sections, and it covers over 44 specific soft connectivity issues that impact road cargo, rail, maritime, customs issues, international conventions and agreements, and other proposed initiatives. These recommendations and lines of efforts have been all, again, developed through our engagements with both the public and private sector from all 7 countries, and have been also vetted by our partners, international organizations, and as well as USAID. Now, the need for coordination platform, and we hear this all the time, it is crucial to limit and reduce fragmentation of efforts. Everybody is really trying hard to really advance this corridor, but there is lack of coordination among the donor organizations, among the countries, within the countries, and within the specific ministries in each country. There's also lack of coordination and information sharing. So CLDP has been tasked by the State Department to facilitate this coordination platform to advance the soft connectivity measures and really start implementing some of the low-hanging fruit issues that could be easily implemented in the near future. We are focused on, again, the 7 countries, so the Central Asian 5 countries, Azerbaijan and Georgia, are part of our project. We are also including the private sector in this, in the coordination efforts, as well as working very closely with our EU partners to make sure that the efforts that we put forward are linked with the efforts that the EU is advancing. So we are in close coordination and cooperation with the EU on this. The structure of it, how we had envisioned, and this is aligned with our like-minded partners at the EU, is a very similar structure that the EU has in mind. It will consist of the expert level group and also the advisory level. So the expert level group is basically the heads of the departments and the experts that are involved in the various modes of transport that are that this corridor involves. Those are the 3 modes of transport: rail, road, and maritime, as well as customs authorities. And the participants of the expert group, their main function is basically to collect, analyze, and exchange information, relevant technical information related to the expansion of the corridor, and to synthesize and present the issues to the high-level, decision-making level advisory board. The CLDP will facilitate quarterly coordination platform meetings at the expert level, as well as in partnership with the EU, we were looking at biannual advisory board, decision-making level advisory board coordination meetings where the expert the issues that the expert groups has developed will be trickled up to the advisory board for their consideration and review. The first meeting, we are currently in discussions with the 7 countries. We are aiming to hold the very first inaugural expert level coordination platform meeting right after our EU colleagues hold their meeting in Astana. We're looking at Baku. We are currently in discussions with the government in Azerbaijan, and hopefully things do work out, and we do aim to hold the first meeting in June, on June 20th in Baku. You do have the proposed work plan of our coordination platform engagements. I believe it's part of one of the handouts that you have. You can take a look at that. So we've been able to develop the cadence of our expert group meetings. As I mentioned, quarterly meetings is what we're aiming for. The first meeting will focus on formational aspects and operationalizing the structure and the communication mechanism of the expert group. And then the next meeting we will focus on road transport and customs specific issues. And the following meeting we will focus on railway and maritime specific issues. And then at the end of the year, hopefully in December, we will convene the advisory board at the high level, likely with the support of the EU. That's all I have for now. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was an extremely full description, but I'm going to take the prerogative of moderator to just get a few clarifying questions out if you allow me. And I think it really comes down to coordinating the coordinators. If you don't mind, I'd like to start with Tamar, because this is a very ambitious project for someone to take on within the U.S. government, which itself is difficult to coordinate within the U.S. government. So for you, how did you take on this challenge, and how did you overcome the issues that I can imagine were lurking for you? And Mr. Hololei, just to complement that, how do you envision from an end user's point of view what a person looking at your information, I'm assuming this is going to be online, right? How does an end user, is it online? Maybe it's not. Ah, okay, that's interesting. It won't be. It'll be an internal coordination platform. Is yours and yours? Well, let's get some more from each of you. From an end user's point of view, how do you see your system connecting with theirs? Okay, so just how did you get this going?
For us, one of the biggest challenges you mentioned was coordination of the coordinators. So just the sheer volume of international organizations that are focused on these issues is vast. So figuring out who the key players were in the region and which organizations were focused on what, gathering that information was one of the biggest challenges. And then also within the countries itself, right, the 7 countries, and you have 3 modes of transport, identifying the key stakeholders and also the private sector was a challenge. And I would also add that there's another challenge is making sure that, we use the diplomatic channels to invite the government officials to attend the meetings. So making sure that the governments nominate consistent group of representatives to keep the momentum going, and those key stakeholders that have been involved in our previous engagements, know or already know what the issues were discussed. So it is crucial that we have that support from the governments that they nominate consistently the same stakeholders to participate in our engagements. And then figuring out an effective mechanism of communication and also motivating the group to participate in our engagements. As my colleague from the EU mentioned, these are voluntary events, right? This is on a voluntary basis, so creating some sort of like a motivational, motivations for the participants to be engaged is another challenge. And what I found has been useful is giving everyone the voice at the table, right? So through our engagements, we've allowed the 7 countries to really come together and work through the issues and create a common vision, and the common document, this joint action plan, it gives the sense of ownership to the experts that have really spent the time and effort to develop these issues. So these were some of the key challenges and the solutions, I guess, that we've been able to use to overcome.
Excellent. And does that resonate with what your experience has been? And how are you going to be coordinating with this mechanism?
Well, thank you. I think that the main thing is to have close contact and close partnership with the key players, and in this case, when it comes to working together between the EU and US on how to find the best way to facilitate the implementation of projects which can address the bottlenecks, then I'm quite sure that it is achievable. I mean, already now, our teams are talking to each other. We will have our event on the 12th of June, the launch event of the coordination platform. Our American friends will be there also, and we'll present their platform and the discussions on the soft measures in the afternoon. They have their launch event later on in June in Baku, and then of course we will be there, and I'm sure that we find the most optimal way once the things have started. But I want to remind also that what the EU coordination platform is about, not to just to make sure that we are on the same page, even though I tried to elaborate a bit during my intervention. Namely, the point of departure is the study which was made by the, which we commissioned and which was executed by the EBRD and was then presented last year in June. And this study identifies 33 hard infrastructure and 7 soft infrastructure projects. So, so what it means is that all these are the projects that first and foremost are dealt with by the coordination platform in order to find the partners, in order to find the financing, because you want to have some kind of a one-stop shop as well, and that is what we try to provide. And it is also very important that the players there will be well aware what's going on, because when we talk about the soft measures, then US has done a lot on that domain and continues to do. But equally, EU is also looking into that. World Bank is looking into that, and I was having also conversation yesterday during my meetings in World Bank. So we have also scarce resources. Important thing is that we complement, we don't overlap. And to see also where, the competence is the best in order to be able to address one thing or the other. What is also absolutely essential, of course, is anything to do with the soft measures, and particularly where you have digital solutions involved, interoperability. Everything has to be interoperable throughout the corridor, because otherwise what's the point? So again, when we talk about the seamless corridor, it also means a full interoperability, so that you can have different systems, but the systems need to talk to each other to make sure that you don't create additional layers of bureaucracy or additional layers of complexity, which are not going to help. So, I mean, we are in the early days. I mean, we know what is in front of us. We have the 40 projects to look at, but of course this is not the end of the story. I mean, but we need to start with this. I mean, eventually we can also see how we can enlarge that, and I have always said that the coordination platform we have is also very welcoming new ideas of the projects which would be significantly contributing to the success of the corridor.
Okay.
So it doesn't stop with the 40, but we have to start with something, and that is what we have on the table, and that is where we hope that we will also be able to make progress. Also, when I talk to my friends in the Central Asian countries in particular, then of course what they also want to see, they want to see some concrete things happening on the ground.
Right.
They want to see results. So in the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. It's not only about having the tools in place. The tools are there to facilitate actually the implementation of the projects which will make a difference. And that's what we try to aim also through the coordination platform.
Very good, thank you. And if I could just put one more question here to our Ambassador McKee, is that you have a very specific new initiative. Could you give us a few more words on how you're going to work with the EBRD specifically?
I think is it picking up? Is it working? Great. And I'm lucky. So the EBRD, both in conducting an assessment and looking at investments and other elements, recognized that we'd had great success, frankly, in Ukraine on a huge lift that we engaged in the summer of 2022 when Putin had blockaded, obviously, Odessa and all of the ports of the Black Sea, and getting out the grain, right? Because food security, or Ukraine's contribution to food security, the ripple effect and the impacts were an order of magnitude. And so we had piloted, and this was overland routes, the solidarity channels, solidarity lanes, in 16 border crossings. And those together, the EBRD and USAID, we brought the software, they did some of the hardware, and the financing. And we reduced wait times at the borders in these pilots from 2 days to 2 hours, which was significant and vital. And that worked. It was more, again, don't waste a good crisis, needs must, and we need to make sure that what was so vital for their economy continued to, turn over, not just get out the grain that was, being blocked, but also to be able to access inputs for the next harvest cycle. And so that partnership, again, was so effective. We're expanding it, but we recognize that we work together across Europe and Eurasia and the Middle Corridor, and again, how it's overdue for the focus and the attention and the amplification and movement, not just coordinating, but doing. And so during their AGM, their annual general meeting in Yerevan, and this is, so governments and institutions can actually do stuff quickly. The idea came up right around the spring meetings of the World Bank, and 2 weeks later, we had both sides of the House lawyers approved and clear MOU. And it's not just a piece of paper. What it articulates is where we've seen success in the past, building on that momentum, what we can do to focus on the connective routes, again, hardware, software, and what they can do to leverage investment, but also to ensure intentionally that we, maybe not necessarily finance each other or de-risk each other, or we'll do a feasibility study and they'll come in, but that we are in lockstep and on the same page for everything that we're going to do together in the South Caucasus.
Excellent, excellent. And I can say that having worked with USAID on CASA 1000, that's exactly the model that I was envisioning, yes. Okay, thank you so much. We are getting short of time, so you see our speakers are already waiting to get questions. Please come and stand in line, make them ready to take your questions, and I'm going to ask you to be very brief with your question and your answers, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I'm Peter Humphrey, an intelligence analyst and a former diplomat. I'm wondering to what degree the Middle Corridor intersects with Belt and Road. Is it a frequent intersection? What kinds of things intersect? Is there a conscious effort made to keep these things separate? Are the Chinese knocking on the door to have a piece of the act? And this kind of thing. Appreciate your comments on that.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take Dr. Hudson as well. So we have two questions. Dr. Hudson, who was addressed our Caspian Forum last year. So please.
My question is primarily for Twang. I haven't heard much about vessel capacity in both in the Caspian and the Black Sea, because Transega had expressed concern last year about this question, both the age of the vessel and the number of vessels. I was wondering if that featured into your overall capital investment strategy.
Okay, so let's take these two questions. Shall we do that? Or we have one more here. So let's take the third question while the gentleman. Please identify yourself.
I'm a consultant. How are you using the internet to coordinate things?
How are you using the internet to coordinate? Okay, fine. So let's start with the Belt and Road. Who wants to take that on? Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, thank you very much for the questions. I mean, obviously, the Belt and Road has been there for quite a while, and Central Asia has also been part of the Belt and Road initiatives. So in that sense, we are looking at it from the angle that whatever we have as a Trans-Caspian transport corridor is something where the point of departure is the Central Asia, and we like to make sure that this network is also delivering, and this network is actually giving the maximum to make the corridor efficient and also functionable. And if there are sections which are already there, I think that we would have no problem of seeing those sections also as part of the overall Trans-Caspian corridor. The only thing is that for the financing and for the coordination platform, we accept only those partners who are the like-minded partners with the same type of regulatory framework, understanding of the rule of law, and also having the same type of approach to the business. So from that perspective, we want to concentrate what we are able to do, and that is what the EBRD study has also done, and we also welcome the investments from those countries who are, and from those entities who have the same point of departure from the point of view of rule of law and regulatory framework. If I may also, because I am, and in any case, colleague from the World Bank will take the answer, but the question was about the Caspian vessels, which is also a well-known topic, and I want to compliment first the World Bank that they are also making another study, which is extremely precious and extremely needed, which is the study concerning the water levels of Caspian. And this is, of course, an issue which concerns many, especially those who are considering investments in the Caspian ports, because they need to know whether the port is still, has the access to the water in 10 years from today. So obviously these are extremely important additional elements. But it's not only about the number of ships in the Caspian, as the question was. It's also about the type of ships in the Caspian. Because currently, of course, with the types of ships that are operating in the Caspian, they are much more affected by the severe weather conditions. So once there will be more capacity in terms of the vessels, then it's not also a question of the type of the vessels, which can also be able to withstand better the rougher conditions during certain parts of the year in the Caspian.
Good, thank you.
I just wanted to add, I wanted to add one point on the Belt and Road, and it's what's vital to us is not to displace or pressure any of our partner countries to have to make a binary choice. But at the heart of that is choice and having alternatives. When they look at, again, the host country financing, and they look at sourcing and competing contracts for both construction or other connective elements, having transparency, accountability, quality standards, environmental concerns at the heart of wherever those tenders are, may the best company or implementer win, who keeps those principles true and delivers effectively and on time without other financial or fiscal risk to the host country. And we are pressuring or putting at the center of the work that we're doing, ensuring that local content, local business, and the collateral economic and inclusive economic development that is so vital for realizing the full potential of the Middle Corridor is at the heart of all of the proposals and programs that we do. And so, if host countries prefer to go that route, great. And if they prefer to go another route, that's fine too. And we aren't, again, being exclusive, but it's important to have those options.
If I could say, this is why having the international financial institutions involved, like EBRD and World Bank, is very helpful, and EIB, because they do require the application of these high international standards, and procurement is falls under that. So in that respect, if you don't mind, go ahead. All right, sure.
It complements. I just wanted to simplify because I entirely share what you said in an elegant way. It's just that with some you can go faster, but I guarantee with us you can go deeper and further.
Okay, very good, thank you. I'll ask Winnie Wang to answer not just the question on vessels, but also comment, because you did digital connectivity, that the internet and the capacity of the internet is going to be an underlying infrastructure issue. So,
yeah. On the Caspian Sea level, thank you for the DG for answering. I don't have more information to add, but just to let you know, we also exploring how to address the issue of slow ship-to-shore handling, maybe by deploying more efficient cranes for each cargo type, and also by acquiring different rail-mounted equipment. But DG mentioned the most, and we'll keep you posted on this particular area. It's something concerning all of us due to the climate change. Before I mention about digital, I want to also complement what these two speakers mentioned on international collaboration. I want to mention in my previous job, before I come back, I was coordinating the Nepal Upper Aron hydropower project. Is the project of the country, the biggest in the country. It's about $1.7 billion US dollars. World Bank committed 500 million, but the rest we work together. It's like Middle Corridor, but in one country. We coordinated with EIB, ADB, JICA, Arabic funds, Kuwait funds. We work together with the government Nepal to find what is needed for the country, and then we crowdsource all the IFIs, donors, to get funding. The key is to have a common vision, and then we put our efforts together, right, to make it happen. And then, of course, as you two mentioned, it may be a little slow at some point, but international organizations like us, we have really high standards to make sure the environment impacts, the social benefits to the people. All of these are taken care of, and transparent procurement. So it may be a little bit slow, but the outcome will be good. Go back to the internet. I worked on digital the sector before. I think it plays a critical role. We also identify that as one of the lower cost, maybe less on infrastructure, but more effective measure to improve the Middle Corridor. Especially we know a lot of border crossing, a lot of them are on paper. You cannot track the shipment. You don't know where the stuff is, and the border crossing can take a long time. Imagine all of them are seamless, digital, of same standards, protocol, same architecture, that a shipment from point A go to Turkey, from Georgia to Turkey or others, can really be monitored in real time and processed, cleared in real time. That is a big efficiency gain. And in the World Bank, we also have a dedicated group, the Digital Development Group. We are looking at that and see how that can be complementary to the hardcore infrastructure investment.
Very good. So since I see that we have no more questions and we have a lovely buffet and a garden that you can eat it in, let me just wrap up by saying one or two takeaways. One is a message to representatives here of countries that are the recipients and active leaders of this process. To quote James Taylor, you have a friend. I have to say, this panel just showed me that you're not alone. Secondly, I do think that the vision is broadly the same and it's been incorporated in your coordination platforms. Thirdly, that this is multi-stakeholder, and so it is both public and private. And then finally, I have to say, we are left, though, probably with what the Italians would call l'imbarazzo della scelta. That means the embarrassment of riches. I've heard 10 projects, 33 projects, 40 issues. The next step will be to winnow those down and to get started on the highest priority ones. But I have no doubt from what this panel has discussed that you'll do it. So thank you to all of you.
So I'd like to welcome everyone to our fourth and final panel of the day. We are going to focus on the private sector and how to do business better along the middle corridor. I think our morning session showed a lot of words to the wise. My favorite comment out of all of it, and it's probably just me, don't waste a good crisis. But I think for us, in looking at the private sector, whereas governments and the financial sector have long looked at the middle corridor with some question marks in terms of its viability, the private sector, at least in some areas, has been engaged in this region for a long time. And there are some businesses in particular who have been quite successful and are able to do business along the middle corridor without issue. And so I think, with the remarkable developments over the last couple of years in particular, there is a huge focus on this region and what its possibilities are. I know there are a number of conferences that are discussing contributions and funding commitments for middle corridor development, and these are definitely needed, and our last panel particularly looked at addressing some of the critical hard and soft infrastructure prerequisites that really are important for the middle corridor to become a desirable, profitable, and self-sustaining transit way for cargo and connectivity, moving from Xi'an, China to Ceyhan in Turkey, and reaching down towards the various gulfs in South Asia. And what we're seeing now is a tremendous interest of business in the region and business investment and development, particularly as this middle corridor starts to elevate this central region of Asia, which at one point was kind of a flyover zone. There wasn't a whole lot of reason to stop there unless you were in business in maybe the oil sector. But now all of a sudden Central Asia starts to become a destination. And as a destination, it is being elevated by this interest. And since the war in Ukraine, there have been a tremendous number of enhancements along the middle corridor that have made doing business in this region much more accessible to foreign direct investment, and certainly much more visible than it ever has been before. So today, without much further ado, because you're not here to listen to me speak, we have really an expert panel with a diverse set of experiences who can directly speak to the business climate in the region and steps that are being taken to alleviate the impediments to doing business, and frankly, what the middle corridor is doing for business. So, use my cheat sheet here. We'll start with Robert Scher, who is the Vice President and Head of International Affairs for BP America. Before joining BP, he served in multiple senior leadership positions in the US, government, the Department of Defense, including as Assistant Secretary of Defense. He's been a senior policy advisor to the Secretary and Undersecretary of Defense, as well as numerous Deputy Assistant Secretary positions. Bob brings a remarkable wealth of experience to BP and to us here today. He knows and understands the broader Caspian region like few do. Sitting directly to my left, Mamuka Murjikneli. He's the CEO of WonderNet Express Investment Group, which helped found a logistics corridor for transporting dry cargo from the Caspian Basin countries to the Black Sea ports through Georgia, combining Georgian railways, Azerbaijan railways, as well as the Caspian seaports. He served as Georgia's ambassador to Turkmenistan in numerous foreign ministry positions, and he has extensive business experience in the Caucasus and Central Asia region. To my right, Laura Brank is a partner with the law firm, the global law firm, Detchard LLP. She is a corporate and finance lawyer focused on emerging market transactions, and thank you for that work. And over the past 30 years, she has advised multinational corporations, investment funds, banks, multilateral institutions on all sorts of complex cross-border issues, finance transactions, corporate government financing. She's worked the entire region from Eastern Europe to Central Asia. She is still the head of Detchard's Russia practice, and since 2022 has acted for dozens of companies who are exiting the Russian market. And finally, on the far right, Eugene Sier, who joins us today. He's the Chief Operating Officer of the busy port of Baku, bringing over 30 years of experience in port management, including having served as a senior leader in 2 of Singapore's busiest ports. He is an expert in overseeing all facets of commercial and container terminals, and under his leadership, the Port of Baku has achieved remarkable milestones, including doubling its container and overall cargo throughput, showcasing a remarkable expansion in its operational capacity. He also leads digitalization and sustainability initiatives at the port. So, if I may, we will turn first to our panelists and have them make some comments and share their perspectives with us. Then I'll pose a couple of brief questions, and then we'll turn it over to all of you in the audience. So first, maybe Bob?
Okay, great. I listened to the bio, and all I could think is, here's a guy who just can't keep a job.
Is that me?
No,
Oh, okay.
that was me. The title of How to Do Business in the Middle Corridor, it implies that it's different in the Middle Corridor and in this region than anywhere else. And while there's a temptation to say, no, of course not, that's not the case, every place has its unique pieces, I think in many ways it is true that this is just like any other place to do business. We at BP have found this is a great location for us. We have solid relationships in and around the region. We work with great partners in the private sector and in governments, and we've found and we've been able to develop top-notch talent in the region. And I will note, it's talent that we have now exported within BP globally. It is hard to go anywhere in BP, a major center of operation for BP, and not find someone with an Aliyev or some other kind of last name that looks and goes, I know where you started your work here in Azerbaijan. And obviously, I'm going to speak from the perspective of the oil and gas sector, and there are some things that were made easier and are obvious about the oil and gas sector, but I think there's some things that pertain across the board a little bit. We in BP are very proud of our 3 decades of presence in Azerbaijan. And I will note that one of the reasons that it's such an important region for us is because it fits into our overall strategy of both pursuing resilient hydrocarbons while simultaneously looking at opportunities to move forward on our low carbon goals. We are committed to both goals, and we see that nations in the region are committed to both of these goals as well. So look, I will do a little bit of an advertisement here, but I think everyone is really well aware of BP presence in the region, the prolific oil fields and gas fields in Azerbaijan, to the transit corridors that take this energy towards the west to key markets. Since its start, The original ASG production agreement has produced 4.3 billion barrels of oil. Jacques Denis is one of the largest gas condensate fields in the world, and it's the largest discovery made by BP. We just celebrated 200 billion cubic meters of total gas production out of Jacques Denis. And the Southern Gas Corridor, a marvel of both engineering and diplomacy, I'd say, started commercial operations just in late 2020 and is currently flowing at its European export capacity, supplying the equivalent of 12 BCMA to European markets and even more going to Turkey. Look, this is great. We love sharing the advertisement stuff, but the real indication of the business environment that I think we're here to talk about is not what we've done in the past and not what we established and started 30 years ago. It's what we're looking to do that we're doing more of. We are still committed to the region because the region still is committed to us and committed to some of the key factors that make doing business in the region a thing that is worthwhile for businesses. For example, the next state of development is where we have now what we consider BP's most advanced offshore facility. Please don't tell that to the people who operate in the Gulf of Mexico. They'll have my head. But nonetheless, exploiting more in Azeri Central East project, more gas in Jacques Denis Reservoir. We're looking how to see how we might further expand the Southern Gas Corridor to deliver beyond what we increased delivery of in 2023 due to geopolitical conditions. And we're working with the Ministry of Energy in Baku on Project Sunrise, which will be a solar power plant project that would then provide clean energy for operating of the Sangashel terminal, our big terminal south of Baku, where a lot of the hydrocarbons come in and then are processed beyond. And we're looking for more opportunities to work with SOCAR, for example, our great partner, outside of the region itself. That to me is another really big indication of this is where companies can do business. There are partners that we can do business with, and not just in the region, but actually elsewhere as well. Look, we continue to see that doing business in the region is beneficial to BP. It's one thing to start projects. You start projects in the hope that you can work with your partners, work in the region, make a success. You build on projects and come up with entirely new ideas for how to work with your partners because you know you were successful in the first place and that it is an environment that allows you to do business. And I can't emphasize this enough. This region boasts many great partners, nations and companies. We would not be successful without those partnerships, and especially those of SOCAR and all the governments in the region, but especially Azerbaijan. It's tempting to say it's all that rosy and just leave it here and let everybody else tell you other things. I would say that while, in fact, there are many cases we've been able to overcome hurdles in our businesses, but as a result, you have to recognize there are hurdles. Regional integration is a goal, but still needs to be improved. There's so much potential in the region, but that potential grows exponentially if the region as a whole can be better integrated. 2, there are always opportunities for regulatory reforms and laws that make it easier and more predictable to operate throughout the region. And sort of a corollary to that, or 3, depending on if you're numbering your notes or not. Consistency of that regulation and those regulations throughout the region are critical. 4th, there is really great human capital that we have talked about, that I've talked about for operations, but there's always room for improvement across the region. I know we all are worried and looking at what AI will replace, and frankly, AI is going to replace some tedious operations that people do today in industries all across the spectrum. But that places even greater focus on the need for humans to have the right skills and technical abilities for things that AI won't be able to cover. And in every place, having all the regional nations maintain openness to investment, being clear and consistent about rules of the road, maintenance of contracts will always be critical for investment opportunities. And finally, I think obviously peace and security. It goes without saying, but in fact, we should probably say it. Stability in the region, political stability, geopolitical stability are going to be important. Many companies have figured out a way to operate even in unstable environments, but if you want new companies to look at the region in a different way, you have to move on from that. The people who are already in the region can handle a lot of different tensions, a lot of different issues, but new companies coming in need to see a region that is in peace and greater integration between all the nations. So, how do you do business in this region? Yes, there are regional peculiarities here, just like there are everywhere. If it was easy, you wouldn't have to worry about other companies and multinational corporations coming in to try to do work there. You need to know the environment when entering any region, and you can't expect that it's going to be just like it was in your home region. But in many ways, the way to do business in the Caspian is how you do business anywhere. Have a good project that can make money. Have the technical expertise to develop and run that business. Have the people you need with the right skills. Have the partnerships you need to navigate the region and learn from these partnerships. And have the consistent and predictable regulatory and legal environment in which to operate. Is all of that a guarantee to be able to be successful in this region? Maybe we're not there yet, maybe. But I think in many facets, the region itself has recognized this, is making progress, and striving towards where we are. Those trends need to be continued, and I think it's organizations like CPC and others in this room that are trying to create those conditions whereby countries and partners recognize what needs to be done and how it needs to be moved forward. I can tell you that we at BP, as many others, are right now continuing to see options and opportunities in the region. And frankly, it only benefits us if more companies start to do the same. So we will work with any companies to try to see if there are lessons we can provide, and certainly look for the countries in the region to head towards this more consistent regulatory, legal environment and integration throughout the region so that we can all benefit more from where we come from. Thank you.
So I think that's a great way to sort of start this session off. You can do business in this region, but there are some needs and other things that can be improved. I think obviously the regulatory framework and harmonization across the region becomes very important. But I think perhaps the thing that we should most highlight in what you're saying is that this is an evolution that we are going through, and that change is taking place, and that this operating environment is growing and changing. And so with that, let me turn to you, Mahmoud.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me here. I'll start with the introduction of the company where I work. It's a Bondanet Express Investment Group. It's a joint venture between American company Tramo and the Georgian company Adia. I'm very proud to say that this is the biggest American direct investment in Western Georgia, in Batumi. We own and operate a multimodal terminal in Batumi Seaport. We started our work about 3 years ago, and we transport fertilizers that are produced in Central Asia, mainly in Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. We are transporting around like from 1 million to 1.5 million tons annually, and definitely we are looking at the possibility for expansion, because we see that there is a big demand of middle corridor. We see that Central Asia itself is growing, and there are new facilities that will be built there, especially who will be involved in production of fertilizers. We are very proud that we work very closely with Baku Port, and we started our partnership from day one. We obviously work very closely with the Georgian Railroad and Azeri Railroad. And definitely there is a room in middle corridor, and there is way more that can be done. I would like to agree with Geltman that, like, right now, most important thing in a middle corridor is the safety, and definitely safety of our region is one of the priorities that all of governments involved in the region are involved. And because for owners of the goods who are involved in the transportation, for them, most important thing is for goods to be delivered safely, economically for it to be good, and for it to be delivered fast as well, what we are doing right now. But we need to do more work. We need to definitely make more investments into the infrastructure of Georgia and Azerbaijan in railroad, in development of the ports. I can say that in Georgia, definitely Georgia needs deep sea port, because right now the biggest ships that we can handle, our terminal can handle it, and it's up to 50,000 tons. But demand is growing, and definitely I think we can handle at least like minimum from 7 to 10 million tons annually, just in fertilizers that are available in Central Asia. And but we need to work together, and definitely private sector and government need to work together, because just for private sector, I think it will be difficult to do all these works, and definitely government need to involve, and I can say that Georgian government definitely need to make a decision about getting involved in building the deep sea port, because without it, middle corridor, what we are calling it right now, if we want to improve it and if we want make more investments there, definitely it will be we will just lose more cargo that is available there, and we definitely need to bring more cargo. And we get assurance from Georgian government that very soon they will make this decision, and hopefully very soon all of us will see the start of the deep sea port. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. We as a company definitely have an interest to expand. We'll definitely invest more into the transportation corridor, because again, I would like to underline that we believe and we see the importance of middle corridor. Especially what's happening right now with the occupation of Ukraine. Obviously, many companies started to think of switching their goods toward the middle corridor. I can say that we, as a company, we are the first company who brought the sulfur owned by Chevron through middle corridor. And there is a room. They would like to bring even more goods through that corridor. So we are ready to do it, and together we will work with our partners in Azerbaijan to increase this potential and to be involved even more in this corridor. I'm ready to answer all the questions then afterwards, so thank you so much.
A couple of very interesting points there in particular. Obviously, there is a huge growth on the middle corridor, but it is pushing the boundaries of what the current infrastructure is able to handle, both on the rail and on the port side. And so it seems what you're saying is, the private sector is there, it's engaged, but it does need government assistance in order to be able to facilitate some of these massive improvements that need to take place. So it's an interesting juxtaposition of business and government and how that cooperation needs to work forward. And arguably, it's not just the government of Georgia or Azerbaijan, it's all of the countries, the governments and countries in this region that need to work together. So, very interesting. So with that, we're going to turn to our legal expert here. Laura, please.
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's really a pleasure. It was a very exciting morning listening to all the progress that's been made. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and focus a bit on those legal challenges in the region, how they're being addressed, and also some advice on how to mitigate them. As Eric mentioned, I've been doing deals in the region for 30 years now, so I think I've learned a couple of things along the way that hopefully will be helpful to you. So first about legal challenges, and what Bob was saying is true in the sense that it's no different than other places, but it does have some peculiarities, and I think one of these is with respect to the non-transparent nature sometimes of the laws that you're dealing with. There's some inconsistencies between the laws and some vagueness, and so that makes it a bit difficult, challenging for investors to understand which law applies sometimes and how they should operate And that's particularly true, too, with regard to some of the tax laws in place, sort of ever-changing. But in that regard, with the non-transparent nature, there's been a lot of progress made. There's a big move towards digitalizing these laws and, having committees that are looking at the laws and making sure that you don't have these inconsistencies in application and interpretation of the laws. So a great deal of progress has been made in that respect. Bureaucratic delays and obstacles, again, not specific to this part of the world, but in some cases have really been problematic for investors and frustrating for investors about the red tape involved in getting a license, red tape even in establishing a company. Again, there's been a lot of improvement with digitalization of the process, especially with, again, the tax authorities, the customs authorities, all these things. There are definite steps forward to reduce the level of bureaucracy in these countries to make investment easier and trade easier in that part of the world. And then infrastructure, and we talked a lot about this morning, the infrastructure that's in place. I've had clients that have gone there very excited about a price of an asset that they purchased out in the middle of the steppes, only to find out there's no way to get the product once it's produced out of the country. So, the fact that there's such a huge focus on logistics and transportation is really super vital for investors, to attract investors there. So it's really great to hear about everything that's happening in that respect. Compliance. Compliance is a big concern. These countries, there have been incidences, of corruption, and the countries are, of course, all very much aware of some past history with respect to corruption. And there are lots of laws in place now to address this. And I do think that, it takes time to educate a society. It takes time to change behaviors. And I think we're seeing a lot of progress in that regard as well. And a lot of this isn't just me. This is what the OECD has commented on, and other organizations that have, really taken a view, over the years and what's changed and how progress has been made in that part of the world. Enforcement risks is another area, and this is about the contractual risks and trying to enforce a judgment in courts. That really is the last, in my view, one of the last things that really happens. You can make some changes in terms of reducing red tape. You can make changes in terms of, trying to make it easier for companies to open and do business. But, sort of really getting judges trained and educated on business laws and to allow the system to work more smoothly, that does take some time. But a lot of efforts, again, have been made to train the judges, and especially to set up these new arbitration centers. It's great for business, and I'll talk a little bit in a moment about the Almaty, the Astana International Financial Center, which has made great leaps and bounds in terms of hearing a lot of these disputes, and these disputes being heard under English law, which again gives a great deal of comfort to investors in the region, knowing that they're dealing with a law that may be more predictable than the local law in different cases. So now just some words about how to mitigate these legal risks, because when you go in an environment in any of these countries and start to invest, you have to deal with whatever the existing laws and practices are at the time. But there are things that you can do and things that you can prepare for so that you do have a successful investment. And again, I've seen this trend, from the beginning, where companies went in with the wrong expectations and didn't properly prepare. So the first thing is due diligence, right? And of course, everybody always does their due diligence, but in this regard, it needs to be really enhanced due diligence because of the compliance risks, because of the infrastructure challenges that you might face. It's just a matter of really understanding, how the investment will be made, how you're going to get your supplies, how you're going to get the product out. So it's not just the sort of legal, tax, accounting type of due diligence, but really a business due diligence that you really need to take on and understand the challenges involved. In terms of the contractual issues and the law maybe not being completely certain, to the extent that you can, in areas that are vague in the law, you can come up with your own contractual provisions with your counterparties, and sometimes even the state. I was involved recently on a rather large investment in one of the Central Asian countries where I was absolutely surprised to see a number of government ministers sitting in on the meeting to figure out how best to make the process more or less risky for this big investor, and we're willing to put things in an MOU with the investor to clarify certain aspects of the law that weren't clear or that really hadn't been fully developed yet. So you could do that with the local government, you could do it with the national government, you can do it with your counterparties. You know, put it in the contract if something's unclear, and to the extent that you can, and it's not always possible, but like, for example, this Astana International Financial Center, you could use English law to govern your contracts. You could use English law to, you know, even have the establishment of a company that is only recognized as a different legal concept from the rest of Kazakhstan, for example. So again, there are lots of different things that you can do to try to mitigate the risk against legal uncertainty in that particular country. In terms of bureaucracy and red tape, again, I think that is one of the areas of greatest improvement over the last number of years. But still, you have to build in that extra time because, and it's not just, you know, it takes time to get a license or, you know, the explanations. It's getting documents over there, getting those documents notarized, getting those documents translated, going through a legalization process. It just takes time. So I think to the extent that you factor that in and, you know, try to use local advisors that can help you with that process. On infrastructure challenges, the best advice is, from my perspective, is really try to find long-term partners for that, long-term suppliers, and other ways of meeting those challenges. Because again, you know, I've had situations where clients have invested and they need reliable source of power, and then they find out that, you know, that they can't enter into a contract for more than a year or whatever with the local supplier, and maybe in that case they needed to build their own generating facilities or whatever. But that's part of your due diligence in the beginning, but there are lots of things that you can do to address that. And also the road conditions, right? Because sometimes you may be in a remote area. I've had clients that have built roads to get product out because they hadn't thought about all seasons of the year. Went in summer, had no idea what the challenges would be in terms of getting things out. In terms of compliance, this has been a real area of challenge recently, and I don't even think it's the sort of corruption risk as much anymore. It's really where these countries are located, right? Central Asia and the Caucasus being so close to Russia, there's a circumvention risk, and with all the sanctions related to the war in Ukraine, and a lot of Russians being sanctioned, companies are being used to divert products that are banned for export to Russia. And so that's something that everyone, you know, when investing, you need to be very much vigilant about, you know, who are your counterparties, making sure that they're not on-selling those products into Russia, and making sure generally that you do that type of due diligence with regard to sanctions and export control related issues. Again, contractually, there's a lot you can do, putting in those kind of representations from the counterparty, making sure that they're not an agent for a party that may be sanctioned. There's those types of things that you can do, and getting those end user certificates for your products to make sure that, again, that they're not being diverted to the wrong place. So I know my time is limited, so I'll just wrap up now with saying that, you know, there's been a lot of progress. The first deal I did almost 30 years ago. I know what you're thinking, you were just a teenager then, but it was 30 years ago. And it fell apart. It fell apart. It was only 5 years after, you know, Kazakhstan had become a country. and it ended up in arbitration. And everybody had a real bad taste in their mouth about, oh, geez, it's so difficult to do business. But you have to realize, and I realize now, that was 5 years of being an independent country where the laws hadn't been developed and things had not stabilized. And to hear the progress that's been made and to see it when I go to meetings now in this part of the world, it is really quite amazing. And so I hope people forgive a lot of the things that happened in the early days and not think that those are indicative of the future, which seems much brighter.
I think that was a fascinating look under the hood at the mechanisms that really make or break commerce. And I think a couple of really great takeaways here is that this is, again, an evolving scenario. And what we're seeing is now that governments are concerned about ensuring that they have an attractive business environment and trying to build in the capabilities for mitigating risk, if you will. So it's really an interesting time that we're in. Not a place we were even a few years ago.
That's right.
So that's fascinating. So let's turn again to Eugene to bring us home, as it were, back to this middle corridor and the lubricant that makes it work or not.
Okay. A good example of something that worked is the investment by WonderNet in Batumi, the fertilizer terminal. It was a few years ago before they even started to think of investments in Batumi. They started working with Port of Baku. I remember also going down to the wharf, looking at their vessels, making sure the cranes are there on time, making sure that we delivered the customer's requirements, the efficiency, the productivity, tracking for them the wagons, talking to ADY, chasing them the wagons, calling the other side, getting to know where the wagons. We did the whole package for them, in a way. So this built up the confidence of doing business in this region. It built up a sense that it is sustainable. It's just not a one-off thing. Because it was a complex exercise. There were no terminals to store the fertilizer if the wagons come late. We had to make sure everything was in quick clock position so that they don't lose money. And they experienced more good than bad, otherwise they wouldn't have invested in Batumi terminal, and that gave them the confidence. So I think in terms of doing the business in this region, you got to look at it from Central Asia and Azerbaijan. At this point, I'd like to quote to you our President of Azerbaijan, President Ilham Aliyev, what he said on 24th November at the Speaker Summit. He said, Azerbaijan and countries of Central Asia are bound by centuries-long historical and cultural ties. Azerbaijan and Central Asia represent a single historical, cultural, and geopolitical space with increasing strategic significance. The increasing strategic significance points to the port. This is where we transit cargo from Central Asia. Given the geopolitical situations that we are in now, even China didn't look at Middle Corridor with great interest last time. They were looking at the north. They were talking to Iran to the south. And corridor was somewhere in their plans, but it was not really used so much, or not even in their minds, until such time the Ukraine conflict with Russia highlighted the importance of Central Asia economies in terms of a few sectors: energy, fertilizer, you can call it chemicals, and metals. Because these three, Ukraine and Russia, supplied the world with these three products. Russia has one of the most production capacities for nitrogen-based fertilizers. They have a lot of gas. Then Russia decided to shut the gas off from Europe. And what happened? Factories in Germany shut down. Those who are producing chemicals shut down. And where do you get the fertilizer? It came from Central Asia. Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. That created the climate for requirements for companies to invest. Ongoing now, the capacity of fertilizers in Central Asia about 6.5 million tons, consisting of three main: urea, carbamide, ammonium, potassium. More investments will be coming. Even in Kazakhstan, European companies like Seven Energy, they're going to produce ammonia using, as a byproduct of using renewable energy from solar, electrolysis of the water to produce hydrogen, and through the Haber-Bosch process, they produce ammonia as well for fertilizer. So this spurns interest in all these areas. Right? Also, not forgetting that in Kazakhstan itself, there are 2 million hectares of land producing wheat. So it is itself a breadbasket which can contribute to the food security. And when Port of Baku look at all these developments, and after having successfully done Wondernet's logistical requirements for fertilizer, we built our own fertilizer terminal as well. And it's going to be commissioned in 2 or 3 months. 1 month's time. Okay. And it's a capacity of 2.5 million tons. At the same time, we see in the future there needs a need also for a grain terminal. So we are talking to investors. We have already come out with a plan to produce, to come out. We have already identified the location for 1 million ton grain terminal. All these things came about because of Azerbaijan's strategy of diversification of the economy. Because tied to the development of port is also the free economic zone next to the port. With this in mind, we have to look at the middle corridor from a different perspective. I know it has been said, it's not only between Europe and China, or China and Europe, transiting cargo. Actually, my question is, who actually benefits if you transit cargo from China to Europe? What's the value add to Central Asian economies? To Port Baku? Small transit charges. You got to do big volumes for that. In Northern Corridor, they do over 1 million TEUs, so they earn. But it's just not possible in the middle corridor. And one more thing that need to take into account is that there are 5 different countries in Central Asia. We talk about harmonization of custom codes. There are so many developments going on. The World Bank is doing a study. We talk about common tariff. We talk about common phytosanitary measures to move cargo across borders. We talk about common border processing times. We talk, everybody knows. I'm sure there are studies being done, heaps of studies being done. Every Central Asian countries has been touched by one World Bank study, by one ADB study, by one EBRD study, I can bet. Everybody knows about digitization. They know, okay? But where is the info going to? Who will approve it? Who will receive it? who will say, okay, let's go. You know why the Northern Corridor works? Why? Because they have this Eurasian Economic Union. It is also a custom union for which you can implement all these measures, collaborate, reach agreement, formalize it, track it, institutionalize. There's an institution to do this. But in Central Asia, where's the institution? Eurasian Economic Union does not include Uzbekistan. They are just observer status. Does not include Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. It's just Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, sorry. It's just Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. All right? And Turkmenistan is also out. So there's a need, actually, to formalize such things before we go ahead on this digitalization. Okay. Coming back to the port of Baku, we have increased volumes of throughput. Part of it is due to energy. And many years ago, when we started the deal of the century, $7.5 billion project with BP, we did the BTC pipeline. For the first time in history, created a pipeline independent of Russian pipelines going to the north, to Europe. Yeah? Right now, Germany does receive some oil from the Druzhba pipeline interconnector in Aturu, Samaru, from Kazakhstan. Right. And many years after that, we created the Southern Gas Corridor. Big investments in place. This created also independent source. And right now, we supply Europe with something like, we're going to increase it in 2027, right? The 6 million tons of gas. Am I get it correct? I'm not sure, but we are doing some increase. But what does it help the Central Asian countries is to look for alternatives, to get their energy out into these pipelines. And this is where US expertise can come in, together with Europe, to build this kind of infrastructure. Right now, there's no infrastructure across the Caspian Sea to deliver this gas. The nearest you can think about is towards Turkmenistan side and ours, where there are two oil fields that are about 100 nautical miles apart. You connect that, you have some small infrastructure. But what is needed is a new pipeline that created the volumes necessary to supply Europe with gas, to keep it less dependent on Russian gas supplies. So you can see the importance now of where Port Baku sits across Central Asia with all these developments going on. Another key mineral is uranium. Kazakhstan has the largest deposits of uranium. But you know where it's going? It's going to Russia. Why is it going to Russia? Because this uranium has to be enriched, has to be processed into a form that can be used by the most modern reactors. Kazakhstan has not got that capability of processing. He has started something on enrichment. He has started a kind of agreement with China to produce this processed uranium to be sold to the Western markets. But this, again, gives a window of opportunity for US companies, European companies, to work in Kazakhstan. And where does this uranium go after that? You can't go through Russia. can't go through Iran, obviously. So it comes through Port Baku. So we must stand ready to be able to handle all this uranium. So in our master plan, we have taken a strategy of future-proofing our facilities. There was talk about the drop in sea levels of the Caspian Sea. 8 years ago, we started planning this port. We recognized that there may be such a danger. So we built our berth caisson to be able to be dredged to -9 meters to give us a buffer of 3 meters. We have created areas of expansion that if the fertilizer business grows up, we can expand. If the grain terminal business grows up, we can expand. If all the bottlenecks of the middle corridor disappears overnight, and we can handle what EBRD study says we can, over 1 million TEUs of transit, there's area for it. Or we just handle the economies of Central Asia that will contribute 500,000 TEUs, we can handle it under phase 2. So with this in mind, I'd like to end my speech again because there were so many dialogues going on between Central Asia collectively talking to each other. I think they have this idea also of creating a formal institution economic bloc, but not to the extent of formalizing it, but to the extent of working closely together. And there was such a discussion recently in Central Asia where President Ilham Aliyev was invited 5 days before the September 19 meeting where President Biden met the 5 Central Asian presidents. So there was this already within Central Asia, a recognition of this fact that the heads have to work closely together. And Azerbaijan's president said on 6 December, in answer to a question at a conference held in ADA University, it should be enough to look at a map and see where Azerbaijan is situated. If they want to be active in Central Asia, and we see that they do want, how can they avoid Azerbaijan? Are they going to contact the Central Asian countries through Iran or through Russia? Or do they have wings? Thank you.
A lot of food for thought there. I think, again, you're pointing to the fact that this region is evolving and changing, and the idea of a union for customs or facilitation of trade seems to be something that these countries are not just musing over, but actually maybe seriously considering. Yeah. So we're actually a little bit long on time. So if people from the floor have any questions, there's the microphone there. We encourage you to go there. In the meantime, just briefly, Bob, sure, I would note that the oil industry is a pretty easy one to slide right in and do business in this region, I would say, overall, at least in the past. But now the energy industry is changing significantly. And I wonder, what does that mean for the future for this business, which is kind of bootstrapped the entire economy?
So, I mean, I'm sure there are people in BP who would disagree with you that it was easy, and everything looks easy once you've already accomplished it. But I accept that the oil and gas industry has a history of being able to go to places where there may not be the sort of set rules and regulations and really come in and build that, from the ground up. So I think there is a history there. But I agree that we are now, as an energy sector, looking much more broadly than just extractives. How do we what are the new challenges? And I would say they are basically the same challenges that you would find with any company. You've got to worry about your partners, you've got to worry about the technology, the other things that I said. The thing that I think the environment is now more conducive and broadly within the region available to a wider range of actors. So, I think, again, 30 years ago, that was when BP started in Azerbaijan. We had to clear a lot of paths on our own. More than happy to do so. I'm thrilled that people are following it. So to some extent, we've made that progress, but there will be new challenges. There will be new people that you're going to have to work with. There's more social investment that we need to take a look at as you're looking at different energy types. And we're going to face a lot of the same barriers, hurdles that any company faces. The advantage I think that we have is our commitment that we showed early on and consistently, which obviously to some extent is unique to BP, but I don't think is unique to companies. And I think if you make that commitment early, we certainly have found that in the region, you have plenty of companies, countries that are willing, if you show that you are committed, they will show that same commitment back.
Fair enough. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the possibility to ask a question. Maurizio Gelli from Italy. I'm at George Mason University postdoc. I was struck by the comments of the director of Port Baku, because effectively where are the institutions that can support, the systems that can support the regional integration? Coming from European Union, before the custom union we had, as you know, the coal and steel. So there was the market, common market for energy resources, but there was also a common production at the industry level of steel, etc. So what could be the systems to put in place for this region, actually to help the embryonic start of integration at not only as a transport of goods, but as the director of Port Baku said, in integration of resources, maybe the green energy resources, maybe some industrial production together, because the idea is that if the region is integrated, then the corridor can come better to European Union. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's a hard question to answer. Because this sort of dialogue has just started, with more urgency after the war. I think in order to answer that question, you have to look at the geopolitical situation in which we are in. There was a question earlier on in one of the panels about China. How do we handle China? The Silk Road, the BIR projects. The governments of Central Asia has taken a multi-vector foreign policy approach. If you can work with me, you work. If you can deliver the results, deliver it. It will come in stages, what you're saying, this engagement over countries to form a harmonization. In October, after President Xi held the BIR meeting in Beijing in 2023, China started engaging again with Kazakhstan to start a block trade. Imagine, from Xi'an to Port Baku. And between that sector, they resolve all these differences in terms of harmonization, in terms of that, and got the blockchain going to meet the target of 15 days. But mind you, up to Port Baku, it's not 15 days to Europe. They did that as the first target. The blockchain is supposed to come in 1 month, 10. I think last month they reached that. But the cargo is mostly import-export, and the final destination Actually, most of the cargo end up in Georgia to be put on trucks for onward, some of it for onward delivery to Turkey and to Europe. Why? They put on trucks, not go for it on rail. Because there's still this connectivity to Turkey across the Bosphorus, Marmara Tunnel, you go to Bulgaria, you go to different rail conditions, and that part still has not been settled yet. There's still improvements to be made on the infrastructure. So it all comes about whether there's a demand for such services to enact all these institutional changes on harmonization, on tariff harmonization, on phytosanitary measures. And it started on this Xi'an thing. If you look at the Northern Corridor, it was easy to do, right? You go through Kazakhstan, Russia, Belarus, then after that Poland. They're all under the, as I mentioned before, Eurasian Economic Union. So this will come when you find there's a demand for such services. Countries that are involved in delivering the product will get involved and do it. I do not think from the political situation, that's just my own point of view, reading the economic climate and the political climate, that the Central 5 Asian countries will go together and formally announce an economic bloc. Because there's some repercussions to be made in terms of your left side is Russia and right side is China. You know? They will go on this approach, you work with me, right? On this kind of multi-vector foreign policy approach to all, and see where it goes from there. I think the driving force behind all this, if the conditions for Central Asia is right, and they can create the climate for investments into strategic industries that can create a demand for such a service to move the cargo out of Central Asia into the world markets, these problems will be solved faster. So if you take it upon an economic perspective, you must create the conditions for investments first. You know, EBRD has identified a central trade city CN area where 4 of the 5 most populous cities are there: Almaty, Big Sheikh, Shymkent, Kozloda. They're all in this city CN. And if investments can be created in this create the critical economic activities, possibly countries will get together to harmonize all their regulations.
All right, we've got time for one short last question and one short last answer.
Thank you. Greetings. My name is Telman. I am a graduate student at School of International Service with American University. And I was wondering, could you guys briefly comment on how private sector can play greater role in renewable and climate energy financing? I know we talked about a lot of fossil fuels, but is there any potential when it comes to private sector playing a greater role? Thank you.
Let me try to be the quick version here. Absolutely, but governments have a role to play. The idea that private capital on its own will invest in something that's not profitable is, it's a lovely idea, but doesn't work. And I thought, I was in the government for most of my career. I thought that's a great idea. It turns out in the business world it's not. Who knew? Governments have a huge role to play. That's not to say that companies don't, and financial institutions, of course, they have a role to play too. But the environment, not only the investment environment, but the subsidies need to be there in order for this to be profitable. So companies are having a hard time going faster than society. When society makes the move, I assure you that capital and companies will follow.
Great, thank you.
All right, I'm going to do one rapid fire question for each of our guests here who have not had a chance to get a question. You mentioned the fact that the war between Russia and Ukraine has basically been a catalyst for the development of the middle corridor. What happens after the war? Will this middle corridor be viable?
Okay, very good question, actually. So basically, what we need to work together, actually, right now, everyone, like, again, companies involved in a middle corridor, governments as well, that to make this middle corridor, we don't need to be focused just on a situation what it is right now in a region. We definitely need to work hard, and we need to make more investment into the infrastructure for a middle corridor to be there forever, actually, in the future as well, when hopefully war will be over very soon. But again, if I as a company, me as a company, or like, or any other company can provide this service that is quicker, safer, economically it's more valuable, then why someone needs to go on a different direction. So that's where we need to work, all of us involved there together. In regard of the companies that I represent, we started this investment actually and this process before the war. And it was already very good business, and already we started moving fertilizers from Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. We were the first ones who moved the fertilizers from Uzbekistan, and we were the first ones who started to bring fertilizers from Turkmen producers of urea. And this is still the best way for product produced in that part of the world. Especially depends where it goes afterwards. Then from a Black Sea ports of Georgia, sometimes products are way better to be shipped out. Depends where it goes. And to compare with the ports of Baltic Sea, which Russia is mostly using. So again, if infrastructure there is better, if again, I can tell you that depends where it's coming from, but majority of the time the things are coming from Turkmenistan. It gets it takes basically a few days to get to my port, and that's what matters, and the price as well. So we definitely will need to work that in the future, big clients what we have right now, yeah, Chevron, and in the future it will be other companies as well, that they will remain there. And they won't go again back to northern route or southern route or any other route that exists there.
Okay, very good. And then one really brief last question. You had mentioned the Astana International Finance Center. And has that helped international business in the region?
Absolutely.
Briefly.
Yeah, no, very, very briefly, yes. Yes, it has. I mean, it's got more than 2,400 participants as of the end of last year. They've heard more than 1,000 disputes now between parties. They have English judges. They have arbitrators, English arbitrators. So it really gives a lot of confidence to investors that there is a more neutral forum out there that they can resolve their disputes in.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank our wonderful panelists today and your audience, all of you, for being so patient to listen. Thank you again. It's been wonderful having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.